Good morning. Welcome back into RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a lot on tap today. Of course, the closed-door Clinton deposition. We have some videos from the House GOP Oversight Committee. Obviously, a lot of people will be watching this video deposition as soon as it's released from the House, but we have some other videos from the House as well that will release Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition and a shorter clip from the House GOP in just a minute. So the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform are holding closed-door depositions of former Secretary Hillary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton to question them about their involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Former Secretary Clinton is expected to appear today in New York, while former President Bill Clinton is expected tomorrow. Both, again, closed-door depositions are scheduled to begin at 11 a.m. So this is how it's going to work today for those of you that are eager to see any kind of videos. If the House GOP, whether they go live, whether they post a video, will have it. We also have some of the other videos we're going to show you from prior depositions, including a little bit from Les Wexner, and also when it comes to Ghislaine Maxwell. We have other things going on today as well outside of the Epstein files, but this, of course, at the forefront of people's minds, especially when they see that Bill and Hillary Clinton are going to be questioned about their involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. So let's do this. Why not start out with the House GOP Oversight Committee video, all about that time when the Clintons decided, not going to show up.
We're going to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt of Congress.
I'm going to note for the record that former President Clinton is not present.
Today, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform meets to advance two resolutions recommending that the House of Representatives find former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with duly issued subpoenas. The question is now on favorably reporting the William J. Clinton contempt report as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 34, the nays are 8, with 2 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find William J. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with the subpoena duly issued by this committee. The question is now on favorably reporting the Hillary R. Clinton contempt report as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 28, the nays are 15, with 1 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find Hillary R. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with a subpoena duly issued by this committee. We will move the report to the full House. Today, the Clintons must be held accountable for their actions, and Democrats must support these measures or they will be exposed as hypocrites.
But if Comer tries to bring this resolution, he wants to lock Hillary Clinton up, consistent with what Donald Trump's been saying now for 10 years, lock her up, then we'll deal with it appropriately.
Well, there you go. So that's the video to lead off our broadcast. Again, these are closed-door depositions. The GOP usually posts them. We will have that as soon as that happens. And of course, we can upload the Hillary Clinton deposition from today. Tomorrow will be Bill Clinton. We'll also be diving into more details about all of this in just a minute. We also have some other videos and other news that we're tracking here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. In the meantime, let's go to South Carolina, where a great patriot, Mark Lynch, is running for U.S. Senate there. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on Right Side.
Yes, thank you for having me again, Matt. It's great to be on.
You know, it's great to have you on because, you know, again, people like you and others running across the country for office, you know, are on the right side of history that represent we the people, and that's what we want, of course. And so can you talk to us first about the latest on your campaign, and then second, we'll dive into the story of the day so far is the Clintons' deposition in regards to their relationship with the late Jeffrey Epstein. So, sir, if you could start out with your campaign latest.
Yeah, sure. Well, we've attended our 102nd presentation the other night in Marion and down in Charleston. So we're getting all over the state, and we're winning the minds and hearts of the people that have a true viable candidate to bring back a true conservative, God-fearing patriot candidate to represent them and be a leader for this state and for the country. We've had a couple of straw polls people have done. And in the Myrtle Beach area of the state, we polled at 79%. Lindsay was at 13%, and the other guy, Paul Dans, was at 7%. And we had a big event with the Spartanburg County GOP where all the gubernatorial candidates came, Attorney General, U.S. Senate. Everybody got 5 minutes to speak, and we won that straw poll that night live. By like 50 votes out of 450 votes, and there were several undecided still, but we still dominated that night too. And then in the last several weeks, we received the full endorsement of General Mike Flynn for our campaign, and we also received the endorsement from pro-life national advocate Abby Johnson for being 100% pro-life. So that's big news in our campaign. Good stuff's happening.
Definitely. General Mike Flynn, of course, a great patriot that has millions of followers out there on just X alone, let alone across the country. And then you're growing, of course, in popularity because, again, someone that's, an outsider. And we saw with President Trump as an outsider back in 2016 and all of that. That first of all, is something that people like to see. But then actions speak louder than words as well. So we're looking forward to seeing what you may do as a U.S. Senator in South Carolina. Now, one of the big stories, of course, today, Hillary Clinton will have a deposition in New York in regards to her connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Let's start at the 30,000-foot view. How important is transparency and accountability to you and to the American people as a whole?
Right. Well, one of my campaign platforms definitely is bringing back the rule of law and enforcing law and bringing people to justice. And this Epstein files, of course, is on everybody's top shelf. We're tired of the delays, and I can't believe we allow our Congress to redact information out of the pages like Thomas Massey. I'm so proud of him for spearheading this and being a bulldog in it, not letting it go, because America wants justice. It's horrible what happened to these children. We got to bring retribution back for the atrocities that this happened to these kids. And I've heard recently about the CEO in Dubai of DP World had to step down and resign because he was found having conversations with Jeffrey Epstein with torture videos of these children. So this has to come to a head, and these people have to be arrested for their crimes against these kids. It's just horrible.
And then on top of that, any connections outside of just the sex trafficking ring, we're seeing a lot more evidence and receipts to a much broader scope of things out there. And on top of that, on a very awful spiritual level of certain things that are done there when it comes to possibly more of a Satanist occult, sacrificing of children. This is not, back in the day, that was so-called, it's a conspiracy theory. Well, guess what? A lot of people call conspiracy theories that name because they know it's true. Am I right, or am I way off, Mark?
Yeah, no, we've heard some stuff. I don't have receipts on it yet. It's in the news, but that eating of these children's flesh was happening. Have you heard that?
I've heard that. You look at a lot of the emails and evidence and receipts and why sulfuric acid was what brought to the Epstein Island the day the FBI was going to do an investigation. What is beef jerky, really? Is it just beef jerky?
Right.
There's just a lot of things. Now, that could be speculation. Here's the thing. Evidence, receipts, and facts. But we do know, outside of the Epstein files, that this whole Satanist occult thing is a real thing. I mean, people practice this crazy, horrible, evil stuff. And I think people are starting to realize, whoa, is this actually in the so-called mainstream now, or our consciousness, that there could be this huge ring involving sex trafficking, blackmail, and all this awful stuff? I mean, we have to tell it like it is, because if we don't, then we're just like anybody else, covering up something instead of covering it. So, Mark, one more word on that, and shift off of that. So just your thoughts about covering really what's happening out there.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm a God-first patriot to bring God back first into America, and that's what will make America great again. That's the way our forefathers designed it with the Constitution, and we've got to get back to God. It's all spiritual warfare. It's not Republican versus Democrat. It's Satan versus Jesus, and we've got to resist and fight and stand up for our rights, or we're going to lose this country. You know, we've been murdering 64 million plus of our own children, sacrificing them through a softer word called abortion for all these years. And so the whole country, we have to answer for that. And God's hands are off blessing this country. He's a just God, and we've got to end abortion, the murder of our children, too.
100%. There's many topics and many discussions. I think you and I could go on for at least 2 hours to talk about all the different things that are needed for our country to be saved, right? Not only through Jesus, but also through our elections. You know, that Save America Act, common sense, right? To just show ID and show proof of citizenship. I mean, Mark, if you and I and a bunch of people traveled to Italy or something, we'd have to have a passport, a visa. We'd have to have something. You can't just go there, commit crimes like vote illegally, and then on top of that, what's happening here is there are other crimes, assaults, rapes, murders, all the things. So it's ridiculous. It's becoming more clear, isn't it, Mark?
Yes, that's why we need God-fearing people in Congress that can hold the line on biblical values and make this country safe and bring back true patriots again to this Congress.
100%. All right, Mark Lynch running for U.S. Senate in South Carolina. Mark, thanks again for joining us. We'll tackle some more of the topics and domestic issues and next time you're on. Thanks again for joining us here on Right Side. You're a great patriot. Thank you for running.
Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
You too, sir. All right, it's 11:14, Thursday, February 26th. We are live here on RSBN Live. Of course, I know that you saw on the beginning of the broadcast there of the Hillary Clinton deposition. It's a closed-door deposition. Here's what we can do. As soon as it's uploaded or it's either aired live later in the sense of posted by the GOP, we'll have it for you. We'll at least upload it. But we also have a few of the depositions from Ghislaine Maxwell, Les Wexner. We'll show some of that. And also we have other news to talk about here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Before we get into more of the news of the day, let's go to some of our great sponsors. All Family Pharmacy, you see it right there. You can save 10% by just using the RSBN 10 promo code. And a quick question for you, when was the last time you actually restocked your medicine cabinet? Most people unfortunately wait until someone gets sick, then they're scrambling, calling the doctor, waiting on appointment and hoping that the pharmacy has what they need. But you should obviously have what you need, hopefully at home when it comes to All Family Pharmacy, because when you go there to allfamilypharmacy.com, you can stock up in advance on essentials like antibiotics, antivirals, ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, Tamiflu, and more. And they have more than 300 prescription medications available, everything reviewed and prescribed safely by their licensed doctors and shipped straight to your door. So you can be prepared before you need it. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and use code RSBN10 to save 10% on the essentials you want to keep in your house, of course, in your medicine cabinet. Let's go now to Birch Gold. International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency. There's unfortunately a never-ending list of reasons gold has risen over 700% in the last 20 years. And a never-ending list of reasons smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals with Birch Gold Group. More than any other commodity on earth, gold thrives during uncertainty, which is why it's a crucial part of a balanced strategy. It definitely gives you a peace of mind given all the events that can impact the U.S. economy. So all you have to do is just text the word Trump to the number 989898 to receive your free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold help you diversify with gold so you too can have peace of mind regardless the uncertainty. Just text Trump to 989898. Again, the word Trump to 989898. All right, it is 11:16. We are live, looking live at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I feel like it's been cloudy in D.C. for 2 weeks straight. Every time we see that live picture, it's just cloudy and cold. I know it's winter time, but man, hopefully the sun breaks out there soon. All right, so I know a lot of you are looking to see this closed door Clinton deposition. So here are the specifics about that. If you have watched any of the House GOP Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, their depositions are closed door. Then they release the videos either that day, later in the day, or soon thereafter. So we have our hands on a couple of the depositions from Ghislaine Maxwell, Les Wexner. So we're going to dip into some of that coverage here in just a second. Let's go back to clip 1, though, for those of you just joining us, from the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform about the fact that the Clintons said, I'm not going to show up to the original deposition. And then we're going to dive into some more details, and then we'll shift some gears and talk about some other news of the day as well.
You're going to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt of Congress?
I'm going to note for the record that former President Clinton is not present.
Today, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform meets to advance 2 resolutions recommending that the House of Representatives find former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with duly issued subpoenas. The question is now on favorably reporting the William J. Clinton contempt report as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 34, the nays are 8, with 2 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find William J. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with the subpoena duly issued by this committee. The question is now on favorably reporting the Hillary R. Clinton contempt report as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 28, the nays are 15, with 1 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find Hillary R. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with a subpoena duly issued by this committee. We will move the report to the full House. Today, the Clintons must be held accountable for their actions, and Democrats must support these measures or they will be exposed as hypocrites.
But if Comer tries to bring this resolution, he wants to lock Hillary Clinton up, consistent with what Donald Trump's been saying now for 10 years, lock her up, then we'll deal with it appropriately.
All right, so we have our hands on the deposition opening statement from former Secretary Hillary Clinton. She just posted that moments ago, and thanks to our crew and our production staff here at Right Side to get us this right away. So I'm going to start reading that deposition. This is her opening statement. Again, if you're wondering, where's the video? Well, it's a closed-door deposition. We're going to read her opening statement. We do have other deposition videos from Les Wexner and Ghislaine Maxwell that we can show a little bit later in the broadcast. Also, we'll have other live guests as well who are running for various offices out there for the midterms. There's other stories, of course, that we'll be talking about in just a minute as the mobile cam out there is taking that move across the Washington Monument, Thomas Jefferson Memorial, one of my favorite memorials, of course, the Lincoln Memorial, and others. So let's get right to it. Let's go right into a 4-page deposition. This is the opening statement from Hillary Clinton. It's kind of going to pain me to have to read her words, this many words of hers, but I got to do what I got to do. It's being part of the news, right? All right, so Secretary Clinton's opening statement to the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, February 26, 2026. Again, I'm reading here from the opening statement. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, members of the committee, as a former senator, I have respect for legislative oversight and I expect its exercise, as do the American people, to be principled and fearless in pursuit of truth and accountability. Man, if I could just do some commentary with this one, holy smokes. But anyway, I'm going to continue to read Hillary Clinton's deposition opening statement. As we all know, however, too often congressional investigations are partisan political theater, which is an abdication of duty and an insult to the American people. The committee justified its subpoena to me based on its assumption that I have information regarding the investigations into the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Hillary Clinton goes on to say, let me be as clear as I can, I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Again, this is Clinton's opening remarks, the deposition, closed door for the video. All of these words that I'm reading here, you're going to hear from Hillary Clinton herself out of her own mouth when the GOP House Oversight releases this closed door video. Continuing on, I know the words are small there, might be hard to read, but I'll read it here for you. All right, let's go with where the ending of where I stopped there. She said, I have nothing to add to that. Like every decent person, I have been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist in 2008, which allowed him to continue his predatory practices for another decade. Hillary Clinton goes on to say, Mr. Chairman, your investigation is supposed to be assessing the federal government's handling of the investigations and prosecutions of Epstein and his crimes. You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and then also prosecuted. Of those 8, only 1 appeared before the committee. 5 of the 6 former attorneys general were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. You have held 0 public hearings, refused to allow the media to attend them, including today, despite espousing the need for transparency on dozens of occasions. Hillary Clinton, continuing on, this is her opening statement once again. It's a closed-door video deposition, which will be aired at a different time, maybe later today. We're at the mercy of the GOP House committee on this. As soon as they release that video, we can either air it or upload that. Let's go to the last part of this first page of Hillary Clinton's opening remarks. You have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files, and when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition. The next page of her opening statement. This, we have literally 3 more pages of her opening remarks to the House GOP. This institutional failure, Hillary says, is designed to protect one political party and one public official rather than to seek truth and justice for the victims and survivors, as well as the public who also want to get to the bottom of this matter. Hillary says, my heart breaks for the survivors and I'm furious on their behalf. I've spent my life advocating for women and girls. I have worked hard to stop the terrible abuses so many women and girls face here and around the world, including human trafficking, forced labor, and sexual slavery. The former Secretary Hillary Clinton says, for too long, these have been largely invisible crimes or not treated as crimes at all, but the survivors are real and they are entitled to better. I'm going to pause there for just a second, letting you know that after this reading of her opening remarks, we have a video from President Trump and Hillary Clinton back in the day during one of the debates, talking about various things. The word Epstein specifically was not discussed, but we'll show you context of that video in just a minute. Hillary Clinton goes on to say, in Southeast Asia, I met girls as young as 12 years old who were forced into prostitution and raped repeatedly. Some were dying of AIDS. In Eastern Europe, I met mothers who told me how they lost daughters to trafficking and did not know where to turn. In settings around the world, I met survivors trying to rebuild their lives and help rescue others with little support from people in power who too often turned a blind eye and a cold shoulder. Hillary Clinton goes on to say, if you are new to this issue, let me tell you, Jeffrey Epstein was a heinous individual, but he's far from alone. This is not a one-off tabloid sensation or a political scandal. It's a global scourge with an unimaginable human toll. Hillary says, my work combating sex trafficking goes back to my days as First Lady. I worked to pass the first federal legislation against trafficking and was proud that my husband signed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which increased support for survivors and gave prosecutors better tools for going after traffickers. As Secretary of State, I appointed a former federal prosecutor, Lou Sabaka, to ramp up our global anti-trafficking efforts. I oversaw nearly 170 anti-trafficking programs in 70 nations and directly pressed foreign leaders to crack down on trafficking networks in their countries. Every year, we published a global report to shine a light on abuses. The finding of those reports triggered sanctions on countries failing to make progress. So they became a powerful diplomatic tool to drive concrete action. The last part of this deposition, I have to read from my notes here because I'm literally reading it from Hillary Clinton's X page. I know it's a little too bright to see all that, but in order to read it accurately, I have to look at the bottom part here for this second page. I insisted that the United States be included in the report for the first time ever in 2011 because we must hold ourselves not just to the same standard as the rest of the world, but to an even higher one. Sex trafficking and modern slavery should have no place in America, none. This, according to Hillary Clinton, from this opening statement. Infuriatingly, the Trump administration gutted the Trafficking in Persons Office at the State Department, cutting more than 70% of the career civil and foreign service experts who work so hard to prevent trafficking crimes. Hillary Clinton's opening statement reads, "The annual trafficking report required by law was delayed for months. The message from the Trump administration to the American people and the world cannot be clearer. Combating human trafficking is no longer an American priority under the Trump White House." Hillary Clinton says this is a tragedy, it's a scandal, it deserves vigorous investigation and oversight. I'll stop there for just a minute. We're on page 3. If you're just joining us, this is the statement from Hillary Clinton for her opening remarks to the House GOP Oversight and Reform Committee. Again, the video, any live video, it doesn't happen for the video depositions. They get aired at a different time in the sense of the GOP releases them. So we're going to go into some of Ghislaine Maxwell's deposition video that was released, some of Les Wexner's video as well. Also, as I continue to read this here, you can follow along if you'd like. If you have to go to X, you got to go to Hillary Clinton's page. That's where this is at. That's what I'm reading from. Of course, have to do that as a member of the media. You know, we got to read what she's saying here. Also, what we're looking for most likely is going to happen after this deposition statement, whether it's President Trump on Truth Social, whether it's a press conference later, who knows? What will be the response, if any? We'll see. But there's a lot of claims here coming from Hillary Clinton. All right, let's continue on. She said, quote, "A committee endeavoring to stopping human trafficking would seek to understand what specific steps are needed to fix a system that allowed Epstein to get away with his crimes in 2008. A committee run by elected officials with a commitment to transparency would ensure the full release of all files. It would ensure that the lawful redactions of those files protected the victims and survivors, not powerful men and political allies. It would get to the bottom of reports that the DOJ withheld FBI interviews in which a survivor accused President Trump of heinous crimes." Hillary Clinton continuing to say here in this opening remarks of her deposition today, it would subpoena anyone who asked on which night there would be the wildest party on Epstein's island. It would demand testimony from prosecutors in Florida and New York about why they gave Epstein a sweetheart deal and chose not to pursue others who may have been implicated. And the bottom part I have to read again. I have to pick up the laptop in order to do that. It would demand that Secretary Rubio and Attorney General Bondi testify about why this administration is abandoning survivors and playing into the hands of traffickers. It would seek out officers on the front lines of this fight and ask them what support they need. It would put forth legislation to provide more resources and force this administration to act. And finally, the last page from this opening statement from Hillary Clinton that's happening possibly right now. She may be saying these exact words, but again, this is not being aired on any network right now. This will be released from the GOP House committee at a later time, whether that's today or in the near future. We will be going to the Ghislaine Maxwell 18-minute deposition, and then also a little bit of the Les Wexner one. That's 4 hours long, so you can obviously watch that if you'd like. And then, of course, we'll be going to other stories throughout this newscast. The former secretary saying, but that's not happening. Instead, you have compelled me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation, in order to distract attention from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. If this committee is serious about learning the truth about Epstein's trafficking crimes, It would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he showed up in the Epstein files. If the majority was serious, it would not waste time on fishing expeditions. There is too much that needs to be done. What is being held back? Who is being protected? And why the cover-up? My challenge to you, Mr. Chairman, this from Hillary Clinton, members of the committee, is the same challenge I put myself through my long service to this nation. How to be worthy of the trust the American people have given you. They expect statesmanship, not gamesmanship, leading, not grandstanding. They expect you to use your power to get to the truth and to do more to help survivors of Epstein's crimes, as well as the millions more who are Epstein's victims of sex trafficking, end quote. Okay, so that from Hillary Clinton just moments ago. That's the words that she is saying to that House GOP committee. Once again, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform are holding closed-door depositions of former Secretary Hillary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton to question them about their involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Again, the former secretary is appearing today, while former President Bill Clinton is expected tomorrow. Both closed-door depositions began at 11 o'clock this morning, so 33 minutes ago. So that statement that I read there that was released by Secretary Clinton is something that was passed along to me here at the network, and obviously sharing that with you here on Right Side. Okay, so a lot of claims there, a lot of words there. What I'm going to do is this. Today's going to be a news day, not going commentary. I'm going to let, obviously, Hillary Clinton, she said what she said. Is President Trump going to respond on truth or in a press conference? Who knows? We'll see what happens. I'm going to report what we're seeing with evidence, facts, and receipts. Done. Now, when I say facts, someone's claims, they have to have evidence. So what did Hillary Clinton just say? We got to see if there's evidence and receipts to all that. Indirectly, I'm going to stop talking about it because I just wanted to read that to you here on Right Side. Let's do this. We're going to go to a couple more clips regarding the Epstein files here in just a minute. As today, of course, Hillary Clinton is being deposed and within that closed door situation there. Let's go to some of our various, let's do this. Why don't we take a commercial break? We're going to reset a little bit. We'll be right back here on Right Side.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Brought to you by some various sponsors, including angelpaste.com out of Spring, Texas. Of course, this is one of the Angel Paste right here, the Miracle Cream. So we have that here in studio, just sent to us from the great people at Angel Paste. So you can check that out if you'd like. Go to angelpaste.com. Use the RSBN promo code. Always goes a long way. So if you're looking for gifts for loved ones, you have that opportunity right there to do that. Let's move on to our next sponsor here, as it's 11:36, Thursday, February 26th. Rumble Wallet. Rumble Wallet is an awesome sponsor here at the network. I mean, at the end of the day, you may have seen the conversations happening online lately. Censorship is back and it's happening everywhere. platforms are controlling narratives and pushing the stuff they want us to see. So we need to fight back in the information area and the financial area, of course. Rumble is one of the only companies that has stood the test of time and deserves our support. So on one side, Rumble is challenging big tech censorship, but now on the other side, they have introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks shutting us off. Banks can cancel our accounts and freeze our cards. So that's why Rumble has launched Rumble Wallet, a wallet that no one can cancel and a wallet that supporters can use to instantly tip creators like us without any middleman taking the cuts. So you can buy and save digital assets like Bitcoin and Tether Gold in one place. And it's not only a wallet to buy and save, but again, there's various ways to tip various creators on Rumble. So just go to wallet.rumble.com for more information, or just check it out on your various app stores out there. And again, no one can cancel this, situation here with Rumble Wallet. Maybe banks or others can, but not with Rumble Wallet. So a great sponsor here. Check them out, rumble.wallet.com. Two great sponsors here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Kind of a whirlwind day today so far. There's just a lot of news getting thrown at us, and we're just juggling it all, and live interviews and all the things. But hey, we're going to keep on rocking. 11:38 Eastern Time. Let's do this. So we heard from Hillary Clinton there in the sense of at least reading the statement. Well, let's go to just something from a while ago. One of our great people here at the network passed along this video, and let's go to that. This is from President Trump's debate with Hillary Clinton from several years ago. So I believe we're going to play that on a split screen, and we can listen in on that and do a little bit of commentary, I guess, as well. Let's go to that right now.
If you look at Bill Clinton, far away in this nation that's been so abusive to women. So you can say any way you want to say it, but Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attacked them viciously. 4 of them are here tonight. One of the women, who is a wonderful woman, at 12 years old, was raped at 12. Her client, she represented, got him off, and she's seen laughing on 2 separate occasions, laughing at the girl who was raped. Kathy Shelton, that young woman, is here with us tonight. So don't tell me about words. I apologize for those words. But it is things that people say. But what President Clinton did, he was impeached. He lost his license to practice law. He had to pay an $850,000 fine to one of the women, Paula Jones, who's also here tonight. And I will tell you that when Hillary brings up a point like that, and she talks about words that I said 11 years ago, I think it's disgraceful, and I think she should be ashamed of herself, if you want to know the truth.
All right, so that was from the debate back in the day, of course, discussing various things, various matters. So, I mean, there's just a lot going on, of course, today. Why don't we do this? In the meantime, let's take a kind of a more of a reset here. I'm going to organize a number of our notes. We just kind of got thrown a lot of this at the last second today. So we're just kind of covering it live as we go here. So let's go to Ghislaine Maxwell. This is the 18-minute deposition with the GOP House Committee. Let's go to that video now, and then when we see on the other side of that, we'll continue our coverage about today's deposition when it comes to Hillary Clinton. Tomorrow will be Bill Clinton, and then we'll go into some more news of the day as we track a lot in this 24/7 news cycle. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Thanks for watching. Let's go now to Ghislaine Maxwell.
This is a deposition of Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell conducted by the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform under the authority granted to it pursuant to House Rule 10. Accordingly, House Rule 10 grants the committee broad jurisdiction for the committee to conduct investigations of any matter at any time. On July 22nd, 2025, the Subcommittee on Government Operations of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform voted by voice to approve a motion directing the chairman to authorize and issue a subpoena to Ghislaine Maxwell for a deposition. On July 23rd, 2025, Chairman Comer issued a subpoena for Ghislaine Maxwell to appear today for a deposition in furtherance of the committee's investigation into the actions and investigations of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, and Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell. I will enter the subpoena and corresponding cover letter as Exhibit 1. I will enter as Exhibit 2 a letter dated July 29, 2025 from David Oscar Marcus, counsel for Ms. Maxwell, stating in short that his client would invoke her Fifth Amendment rights and request for the deposition to occur after the resolution of her Supreme Court petition. I will enter as Exhibit 3 a letter dated August 1st, 2025 from Chairman Comer to David Oscar Marcus, stating that the committee would continue its good faith negotiations and postpone Ms. Maxwell's deposition pending the resolution of her Supreme Court petition. I will enter as Exhibit 4 a letter dated January 20th, 2026 from 2026 from David Oscar Marcus to Chairman Comer, outlining that his client still intended to invoke her Fifth Amendment rights. The committee noticed today's deposition on February 4th, 2026. I will enter the notice for this deposition as Exhibit 5. Can the witness please state her name and spell her last name for the record?
Before she does that, this is David Marcus, and I just wanted to introduce her and make a brief statement. So members of the committee, on my advice, Ghislaine Maxwell will respectfully invoke her Fifth Amendment right to silence and decline to answer questions today, even though she would very much like to answer your questions. She must remain silent because Ms. Maxwell has a habeas petition currently pending that demonstrates her conviction rests on a fundamentally unfair trial. For example, jurors lied during voir dire to secure seats on the jury, and the government promised immunity and then broke that promise. Newly discovered documents now demonstrate these facts conclusively. If this committee and the American public truly want to hear the unfiltered truth about what happened, there is a straightforward path. Ms. Maxwell is prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by President Trump. Only she can provide a complete account, and some may not like what they hear, but the truth matters. For example, both President Trump and President Clinton are innocent of any wrongdoing. Ms. Maxwell alone can explain why, and the public is entitled to hear that explanation. Thank you, members of the committee, for having us today. Ms. Maxwell can now proceed to answer her questions with the Fifth Amendment. Thank you.
And the witness please state her name and spell her last name for the record.
Ghislaine Noel Marion Maxwell, Maxwell.
Thank you. My name is Jack Emmer, and I am the Chief Counsel for Investigations for Chairman Comer. Under the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform's rules, you are allowed to have a counsel present to advise you during this deposition. You have a counsel representing you in a personal capacity present with you today.
Correct.
Will counsel please identify themselves for the record?
Go ahead, Leah. You can go first.
Leah Safian, Leahsaffian.
Thank you, Jack. This is David Marcus here, and my colleague Melissa Madrigal is also present.
Thank you. For the record, starting with the majority staff, can the additional staff members please introduce themselves with their name, title, and affiliation? Starting with the majority, can members of Congress please identify themselves for the record?
James Comer, Chairman of the House Oversight Committee. Andy Biggs, Arizona 15th Congressional District.
William Simmons, South Carolina 4th Congressional District.
Melanie Stanford, Congresswoman, New Mexico 1st Congressional District.
Raja Krishnamurthy, Illinois 8th District.
James Walkinshaw, Virginia 11th District.
Suhas Silverline, Virginia 10th District.
Ro Khanna, California 17th District.
Robert Garcia, Ranking Member, Oversight.
Thank you all. Ms. Maxwell, before we begin, I would like to go over the ground rules for this deposition. The questioning will proceed in rounds. The majority will ask questions for an hour, and then the minority will have an opportunity to ask questions for an hour if they choose. To the extent members have questions for the witness, they will be propounded during their side's respective rounds. The clock will stop if you need to confer with counsel, your counsel is speaking, and when members or staff are speaking during the opposing side's rounds of questions. We will alternate back and forth until there are no more questions. Do you understand?
I do.
There is a court reporter taking down everything I say and everything you say to make a written record for the interview. For the record to be clear, please wait until the staffer questioning you finishes each question before you begin your answer, and the staffer will wait until you finish your response before proceeding to the next question. Further, to ensure the court reporter can properly record this deposition, please speak clearly, concisely, and slowly. Also, the court reporter cannot record nonverbal answers such as nodding or shaking your head. So it is important that you answer each question with an audible verbal answer. Do you understand?
I do.
We had a member just join. Can they identify themselves for the record? Thank you. Exhibits may be entered into the record. Majority exhibits will be identified numerically. Minority exhibits will be identified alphabetically. Do you understand?
I do.
We want you to answer our questions in the most complete and truthful manner possible, so we will take our time. If you have any questions or do not fully understand the question, please let us know. We will attempt to clarify, add context to, or rephrase our questions. If we ask about specific conversations or events in the past and you are unable to recall the exact words or details, you should testify to the substance of those conversations or events to the best of your recollection. If you recall only a part of a conversation or event, you should give us your best recollection of those events or parts of conversations that you do recall. Do you understand?
I do.
You are required by law to answer questions from Congress truthfully. This also applies to questions posed by congressional staff in this deposition. Do you understand?
I do.
If at any time you knowingly make false statements, you could be subject to criminal prosecution, including but not limited to perjury. Do you understand?
I do.
This includes both knowingly providing false testimony, but also stating that you do not recall or remember something when in fact you do. Do you understand?
I do.
Furthermore, you cannot tell half-truths or exclude information necessary to make statements accurate. You are required to provide all information that would make your response truthful. A deliberate failure to disclose information can constitute as a false statement. Do you understand?
I do.
Is there any reason you are unable to provide truthful testimony in today's interview?
Well, as you know, she's going to take the Fifth Amendment. So that's our caveat to that question.
Please note that if you wish to assert a privilege or any statement today, that assertion must comply with the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Pursuant to that, Committee Rule 16C1 states, for the chair to consider assertions of privilege over testimony or statements, witnesses or entities must clearly state the specific privilege being asserted and the reason for the assertion on or before the scheduled date of testimony or appearance. For the purposes of the deposition, objections must be stated concisely and in a non-argumentative and non-suggestive manner. If the witness refuses to answer a question to preserve a privilege, the committee may seek a ruling from the chair. If the chair overrules any such objection, the witness shall be ordered to answer. If the witness continues to refuse to answer a question despite being ordered to do so, the witness may be subject to sanction. Do you understand?
I do.
Ordinarily, we take a 5-minute break at the end of each hour of questioning, but if you need a longer break or a break before that, please let us know and we will be happy to accommodate. However, to the extent that there is a pending question, we would ask that you finish answering the question before we take the break. Do you understand?
I do.
Finally, I will note for everyone here today that the contents of what we discussed in the deposition today is confidential under the House Deposition Regulation. Under the rules, the chairman and ranking member, minority members shall consult before any release of testimony or transcripts, including portions thereof. This means it is a violation of House committee rules to disclose the contents of the deposition prior to its official release. For this reason, the marked exhibits that we will use today will remain with the court reporter so that they can go into the official transcript, and any copies of those exhibits will be kept at the table or returned to us when we wrap up. Can the reporter please swear in the witness?
Do you solemnly declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Madam Court Reporter, we could not hear you well, and I'm sure Ms. Maxwell could not hear you. I don't know if there's a way to give the court reporter a mic so that, thank you very much.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Maxwell, do you have any questions before we begin?
I do not.
The time reads 10:14 and the majority's time will begin now. Ms. Maxwell, were you a close friend and confidant of Jeffrey Epstein?
I would like to answer your question, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question and any related questions. My habeas petition is pending in the Southern District of New York. I therefore invoke my right to silence under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Maxwell has invoked the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Ms. Maxwell, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Ms. Maxwell, did you at any time play any role in Jeffrey Epstein's activities involving the recruitment, grooming, or trafficking of young women or girls?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Maxwell has invoked the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination. Ms. Maxwell, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Ms. Maxwell, have you ever coerced, directed, or otherwise instructed any young woman or girl to provide sexual favors to Mr. Epstein or any other individual?
I invoke my Fifth Amendment right to silence.
Let the record reflect.
All right, so she obviously was claiming the Fifth Amendment there, didn't speak very much about her connection with Jeffrey Epstein. So this is what we'll do, guys. We know that Hillary Clinton is speaking and delivering that deposition or being questioned by the majority and the minority as well in New York. So as soon as that video is released, we'll be able to upload that to you so you can check that out. Tomorrow, former President Bill Clinton, he'll be going through the same process. Most likely he'll release a statement just like Hillary Clinton did as well. At about 12 o'clock Eastern time, which is in about 5 minutes, John Strand, the person running for Congress in Florida, of course a great patriot, will join us live just to talk about his campaign as we kind of shift gears here a little bit as we're covering a number of different stories. In the meantime, before we do that, let's play one more video. I know we've seen it a couple times, but for those of you that are just joining us, let's kind of put a bow on the Epstein coverage for this second. We'll go back into some more discussions about it a little bit later. But let's go to that clip one again, the GOP oversight video that Representative James Comer sent out, I believe, pretty recently.
You're going to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt of Congress?
I'm going to note for the record that former President Clinton is not present.
Today, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform meets to advance 2 resolutions recommending that the House of Representatives find former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with duly issued subpoenas. The question is now on favorably reporting the William J. Clinton contempt report as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 34, the nays are 8, with 2 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find William J. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with the subpoena duly issued by this committee. The question is now on favorably reporting the Hillary R. Clinton contempt report as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 28, the nays are 15, with 1 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find Hillary R. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with a subpoena duly issued by this committee. We will move the report to the full House. Today, the Clintons must be held accountable for their actions, and Democrats must support these measures or they will be exposed as hypocrites.
But if Comer tries to bring this resolution, he wants to lock Hillary Clinton up, consistent with what Donald Trump's been saying now for 10 years, lock her up, then we'll deal with it appropriately.
Also, Les Wexner, of course, the merchandise, possible real estate mogul, whatever, he also had a video deposition. That's out there for you to check out. It's about 4 hours long. I know a lot of people have already seen that, those that are interested in this case, which you see online. There's quite the interest out there. On top of that, today, of course, Hillary Clinton's deposition that's happening behind closed doors. That's just part of how they do that. And then they'll release that later today or tomorrow. As soon as we see it, we'll post it. Also, Bill Clinton will be tomorrow. In the meantime, before we get into some more highlights, again, from the State of the Union address on Tuesday night, we'll also talk to, or at least go to, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who talks about the Iranian negotiations. And then on top of that, Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio talked about waste, fraud, and abuse recently. So we'll go to some of that as well. In the meantime, let's go live to the great state of Florida. John Strand is running for Congress in Florida, so he'll be joining us here any second from now. Obviously a great patriot, a J6er, but also someone that is on the right side of history. So John, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Matthew. It's always an honor to be with you.
Definitely. So let's talk about your campaign. How's everything going so far?
It's going really well. We're very excited here in the free state of Florida. We are committed to keeping it free and leading the nation in our pursuit of just the fundamental values of America, right? We have noticed, Matthew, across the country from east to west, that the basics, the fundamentals of what it is to be an American and what we should expect and demand as American citizens, it's all being called into question, right? I mean, the State of the Union was a historic speech, and the fundamental moment there was this recognition of what is the purpose of government? What is our fundamental obligation as elected officials and leaders in this context? And that is, of course, to protect and defend the American citizens, not foreign invaders that have eroded our culture and consumed the wealth and prosperity that this country has built over generations. So our campaign mission in Florida 19 is simple and uncompromising: reclaim the Republic. Because the American Constitutional Republic, it belongs to us, but it's been hijacked. And we have to fight like hell to get it back, because that's what we're up against. So I'm running to restore courage, common sense, and Christian values back into government so that we can finally end the fraud, waste, and abuse that's bankrupting the nation morally and financially, and deliver what Americans actually need: security, affordability, and accountability.
Exactly. That's what Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio were just actually talking about the other day, getting rid of fraud, waste, and abuse. So we're going to go to some of that video in just a minute. One more question here for you, John. There's a lot being talked about with the whole Epstein case, and today, of course, Hillary Clinton being deposed, tomorrow Bill Clinton. Your thoughts, if you want to go there when it comes to the Epstein files, totally fine. Or if you want to talk about transparency and accountability. I mean, this is what we, the people, want, because we want our country to be transparent. We want to save our nation. We want free elections, fair elections, and we want the right people running our country, right?
Absolutely. Transparency is essential. Without that, you will never have a clear path, pun intended, towards prosperity and success. So when there is no transparency, there is just a great protection for fraud and corruption, and that's only going to lead us down the wrong path. So we do need to continue to demand transparency in our government, especially. The Epstein files case is, of course, very controversial and complex. It's very obvious to this point, I would say, that there is a rampant level of criminal activity and abuse by government officials and people in those realms of power. This is a nonpartisan issue. There's a lot of corruption in the Republican Party as well as the Democrat Party. And I think there's a real hunger by the American people to see justice and accountability for elected leaders. We've had none of that, really. I mean, as much as I love President Trump and the current administration, and we have a lot of very powerful success and progress, but we have not seen arrests. We have not seen accountability for obvious examples of deeply corrupted officials who have violated their oath, who have exploited the American people. And frankly, we're getting sick and tired of that. So aside from the complexity of the Epstein issue, I think it's just sort of a symbol of how deeply corrupted our leaders have become, who think they are above accountability, and we need to restore accountability and faith in the institutions. Otherwise, our republic will crumble. It won't work.
Exactly. Many people are shaking their head, agreeing with you right there. John Strand, running for Congress in Florida. Thank you again. Please join us as you get closer to the primary date and, of course, November, the midterm election. Thank you again, John.
Thanks for having me on. It's August 18th, and everyone can join the fight to save the republic at johnstrand.com. And it's always great to be with you.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And to John's point about some of the arrests, I mean, you think about the deep state, you think about the 2020 election, the subversion of that when it comes to many that are in the Biden regime. We can name names if you want, but these are names that were already talked about by Tulsi Gabbard, the director of the DNI. You remember there was a press conference a while ago with Carolyn Levitt talking about all of the things. I mean, the weaponization against the president, the lawfare, the weaponization of government against the people. Not only that, they want us all to be silent, you know, at the end of the day. That's what the left extremists want. They want God out of here. They want family out of here. They want freedoms, take a hike, you know what I mean? And that's what we're up against. But in the name of Jesus, we're believing for great things to happen in this country and to continue to happen as there is transparency and more transparency and hopefully accountability, as John mentioned. We have a lot of sponsors to get to, great sponsors. We also have a lot of coverage to get to. So let's go to All Family Pharmacy to start it off. All Family Pharmacy, great sponsor here. Quick question for you. When was the last time you actually restocked your medicine cabinet? Most people wait until someone gets sick. Then they're scrambling, calling the doctor, waiting on appointments, hoping the pharmacy has what they need. Obviously, you should have what you need at just your house. All you have to do is go to allfamilypharmacy.com. You can take stock up in advance on essentials like antibiotics, antivirals, ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, Tamiflu, and more. More than 300 prescription medications are available. Everything reviewed and prescribed safely by their licensed doctors and shipped straight to your door. So you can be prepared before you need it. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And you can get that 10% off. Just use the RSBN 10 promo code. Also, another great sponsor here at Right Side, Birch Gold Group. You see it right there, Birch Gold. When it comes to international disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency, there's a never-ending list of reasons gold has risen, get this, more than 700% in the last 20 years. And a never-ending list of reasons smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals with Birch Gold Group. More than any other commodity on earth, gold thrives during uncertainty, which is why it's a crucial part of a balanced strategy. It gives you peace of mind, peace of mind given all the events that could impact the U.S. economy. So see if this is right for you. You can actually, get help here from Birch Gold to convert an existing IRA or a 401k into an IRA in gold. Just text the word Trump to the number you see on your screen there, 989898. No obligation, just useful information with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers. Let Birch Gold help you diversify with gold so you too can have peace of mind regardless the uncertainty. Text Trump to 989898. That's another great sponsor, two of them right there on Right Side Broadcasting Network, looking live at Washington, D.C. or in Washington. Obviously a little bit cloudy and foggy. It's been that way for about, it seems like 2 weeks straight. Hopefully we'll see some blue skies and sun there. as it is 12:06 Eastern Time. Let's get back into some of our coverage here. We're going to dive into some of that fraud, waste, and abuse discussed by the Vice President and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Also, speaking of the Secretary of State, he recently spoke about the latest when it comes to Iran. So let's go to that clip right now as the Secretary of State addresses that issue.
I don't think diplomacy is ever off the table. The president wants diplomatic solutions. He prefers them. He prefers them greatly. He wants that more than anything else. So I wouldn't characterize tomorrow as anything other than the latest in a set of conversations, and hopefully they're productive. But eventually, we'll have to have conversations about more than just the nuclear program. But if you can't even make progress on the nuclear program, it's going to be hard to make progress on the ballistic missiles as well. So I wouldn't characterize tomorrow as anything other than the next opportunity to talk.
So what we will see is peace, or will there be more? I mean, we know President Trump said there's an armada of the U.S. military in the Middle East right now. He said the same thing prior to actions taken against Venezuela. So what will happen? We'll wait and see here at Right Side, as it's 12:07, again, Thursday, February 26th. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for live streaming in with us, whether you're on the East Coast, the West Coast, or in between, in the Mountain Time Zone, Central Time Zone. Hello to you guys. Thanks so much for live streaming in. All right, let's go now to President Trump on Tuesday night. What a great moment it was when we saw various warriors, various patriots receive medals like the Purple Heart, the honor as well, Medal of Honor. So let's go to that right now.
So, Andrew, while you're up, now I'm going to ask a highly respected General James Seward to present Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf and the great family of Sarah Beckstrom with the award created by our late, great President George Washington himself. It's called the Purple Heart. We love you all. Love you.
All right, so great moments there, of course, during that speech on Tuesday night. You saw that right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network with a lot of viewership. It was great to see you guys here with us as we continue to grow and expand here at the network. And let's go through some of our sponsors as we get ready to go to some more videos and possibly a live interview in a little bit as well. MyPillow.com/RSBN. You know, MyPillow is actually excited right now to announce that they're extending the mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, you could save $40 on the new spring MyPillow bed sheets, any size and any color. Save 30% on their brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one Mike has worn every day for more than 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the United States. And you could also get the 6-piece bath towel sets for only $39.98. The initial quantities are extremely low, so you have to get them now before they go. Of course, you see the mattress and topper sale as well. And the best-selling standard MyPillow is now just $17.98. So you can take advantage of the mega sale 2.0. Go to mypillow.com/RSBN. But that's not all. You will get free shipping on orders over $75. MyPillow.com, great sponsor here at Right Side. Let's go to our next one here. As you'd like to donate to the network, you can. All you have to do is go to rsbnetwork.com/donate as we continue to grow, expand here at the network, and cover various stories out there. As the 24/7 news cycle, as you guys know, it just doesn't stop, even on the weekends. It's hard for people like me sometimes because, you know, obviously I'm kind of in this kind of industry, and but you have to make time, of course, for God, family, and country. God and family first, and country. But we got to feed our family and have a job as well. So if you'd like to donate to Right Side Broadcasting Network, just go to rsbnetwork.com/donate. All right, 12:11 Eastern Time. Something from Liz Harrington on Truth Social. She said, if the Clinton depositions are this limited, what are we doing here? And she says here, quote, I'm going to have to turn it sideways to read that. The Clintons and members of the House Oversight Committee have agreed to 5 topic areas for the depositions. A person familiar with the agreement told CNN. So this is a CNN thing. Liz Harrington is a great patriot referencing this. That's fine. If it's true, of course, with CNN. But anyway, they are alleged mismanagement of the federal government's investigation into Epstein and Maxwell. Again, this is what the Clintons and members of the House Oversight Committee have agreed to, the 5 topic areas for the depositions. Now, this is what's interesting about this, and this is kind of in the moment right now. We see that this is coming from CNN, right? We'll know if this is true once we see the actual video deposition from the House GOP, once they release that, which they have released Les Wexner's, they have released Ghislaine Maxwell, they will release Hillary Clinton's video, which is happening right now, not live anywhere. It's a closed-door deposition. And then tomorrow, of course, Bill Clinton being deposed as well. So let me get back to the information here per Liz Harrington quoting CNN. Alleged mismanagement of the federal government's investigation into the Epstein and Maxwell. Again, this is the House Oversight Committee and the Clintons agreeing to 5 topic areas. The circumstances and subsequent investigations of Epstein's 2019 death. The ways the federal government could effectively combat sex trafficking rings. How Epstein and Maxwell sought to curry favor to protect their illegal activities, and potential violations of ethics rules related to elected officials. That from Liz Harrington, a great patriot on Truth Social. Just seeing that come across our desk here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. On top of all of this, we spoke about, at the beginning of our broadcast, a lot of different things that could be connected with Jeffrey Epstein as well, just through an interview. Again, this is all about having evidence, receipts, and facts. And we've been seeing a lot of that on X. Whether you love Elon or not so much, I mean, on X, he's let a lot of information pass through on that platform. And it's great to also be a part of Truth Social. There's just, anytime anybody ever tries to censor you, they're not on the right side of history. It's simple as that. The gaslighting, nah. Truth over gaslighting, truth over the false narratives, and freedom over censorship any day of the week. 12/14, Thursday, February 28th. Let's do this. Let's go to the Vice President and Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Recently, they talked to the press about fraud, waste, and abuse, and some new announcements that they made. So we'll go to that, and then it's about 30 minutes long, so we'll dip out of that coverage for a second and go right back into it, talk about some sponsors, bring some latest news that we have, and all of that. So let's go now to Washington, D.C. for the Vice President and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. So let me say a couple things about what we're announcing today, and then I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Oz, and then we are going to take a few questions. So as a lot of you know, there are way too many Americans who are being defrauded by very bad actors in our society, people who take the goodwill and the trust of the American taxpayer and they decide to use it against us. They decide to make themselves rich instead of allowing these programs that are set up to make it easier for people to take care of their families, to make it easier for autistic kids to get the after-school services they need, to make it easier for people to get the health care that they need. And we are going to start very aggressively in the administration cracking down on the people and the organizations that are defrauding Americans. So we're announcing today that we have decided to temporarily halt certain amounts of Medicaid funding that are going to the state of Minnesota in order to ensure that the state of Minnesota takes its obligations seriously to be good stewards of the American people's tax money. Now, what is this going to mean? What this means is that, first of all, the providers on the ground in Minnesota have actually already been paid. The state has paid those providers the money. What we're doing is we are stopping the federal payments that will go to the state government until the state government takes its obligations seriously to stop the fraud that's being perpetrated against the American taxpayer. There are a few different ways that we're doing that. There are a few different affirmative actions that we're taking today. Dr. Oz is going to talk about those, but let me talk a little bit about the spirit of this and why we're doing it. So number one of the examples of fraud that we've seen in Minnesota that we verified that is just awful is that a program that existed to ensure that autistic children had access to some after-school services has made a number of people rich, not by providing services to needy children, but by allowing fraudsters to take money that ought by right go to American citizens and to American families, and to set up sham businesses, set up sham clients, set up people who are not even autistic but claim to be autistic in order that they benefit from the money that's out there. Now, what does that mean? Number one, it means that a lot of people are getting rich off the generosity of American taxpayers, but more fundamentally and more importantly than that, it means that there are kids in Minnesota who deserve these services, who need these services, and they're not going to those kids, they're going to fraudsters in Minneapolis. That is unacceptable, and that's the sort of thing that we're cutting off with this action today. Let me make one final point about the spirit of this. You know, one of the things I love about our country is that we're a generous country, we're a generous people. We take care of our fellow citizens who can't afford medical care because they're down on their luck. We take care of people who can't afford to put food on the table even though they work hard and play by the rules. We recognize that we're all in this together, and part of the reason why we have Medicaid, or part of the reason why we have food stamps, part of the reason why we have these programs is we want to make sure that kids who grow up in families not all that different from the family that I grew up in, that they have access to the basic necessities: food, medical care, after-school services when their family needs them but they're unable to pay. What's happening in Minneapolis, in California, in a number of states all across our country is that the generosity and the good hearts of our fellow Americans are being taken advantage of. We're taking that social contract that says that our American citizens, we take care of one another, and we're allowing a few bad actors to get rich off that generosity of spirit instead of providing the services to the kids who need it. This is disgraceful. It has happened for too long. Far too many people have gotten rich by taking what is the best of the American spirit and getting rich off of it instead of providing services to kids who need it. That is stopping today. We're taking a whole-of-government approach in the Trump administration to take this fraud seriously. What Mehmet Oz and his team at CMS have done is really remarkable, and it's just the first step of our efforts. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Mehmet to say a few words about what he's doing, what his team has uncovered, and what they're accomplishing with this new action. Dr. Oz.
Mr. Vice President, I appreciate the leadership on this. There's no question that his commitment, the Vice President's commitment to rooting out this fraud, is going to make a massive difference in preserving and protecting our nation's public health programs. It's going to protect patients. I want to thank President Trump for pushing all of us to make sure we protect our most vulnerable Americans, the ones that J.D. mentioned, the ones he grew up with, the ones all of us know in our lives. It also protects taxpayers from attacks on our healthcare system. Secretary Kennedy has spearheaded these efforts, and thanks to his leadership, I'm proud to announce the largest fraud initiative, anti-fraud effort of its kind in CMS history. Now, why is this action necessary? Last night in the State of the Union address, the President spoke about the affordability issues that we have improved dramatically in this administration. But let's put some numbers on health care. The average family puts about $27,000 into health care a year. They only pay $7,000 themselves, which is a lot, but there's an extra $20,000 invested for them. This is not a reasonable amount of money to spend. We have got to bend that curve downwards. It's unpredictable as well when you have to make these expenses, and the fraud that we're experiencing in America is making this already dangerous problem much worse. So we're going to fix these issues. The President last night spoke about the need for price transparency. That's going to help by making people more aware of what they're paying. It's also going to help us at CMS figure out what you should be paying and identifying fraud. To that note, the President announced last night that he's appointing our Vice President to lead the war on healthcare fraud, a wise choice. Your passion for this will make a huge difference. This is not about the money by itself. This is about people's lives and our culture, our shared values that have allowed these beautiful programs, Medicare and Medicaid, to survive brilliantly for 60 years. We believe, listen carefully, We are spending $300 billion a year in healthcare in this country for fraudulent, abusive, or wasteful purposes. $300 billion. Let's put that in perspective. If we could reduce fraud by 5%, which is at $300 billion, we would take the trust fund that's going to take care of all of us as we get older, and we would allow it not to expire in 5 to 6 years. We would double its life expectancy. That's massively important if you're going to trust a social safety net to be there for you. You deserve that social safety net. It's there. It's created. We're not going to let fraudsters steal it from you. The stellar CMS team, I want to call them out. Kim Brandt, who's videoing me over there, Dan Brillman, Capri Snap, Steph Carlton, have worked tirelessly to put this together. They've been rooting out criminals all year long. I know as well what it's like. I visited all these areas, personally witnessed what it's like to see something you know is wrong and wonder why no one tried to fix it. It's infuriating. The Vice President described very accurately exactly what you see on the ground. These self-serving scoundrels, that's what they are, who rob our federal and state health programs, have decided it is worth the risk. I'm going to make a proposition to you. If you commit crime on Medicare or Medicaid in America, and you steal, let's say, a couple $1 million, your jail sentence, first-time offender, maybe a year. For a lot of folks, that's a good deal. We have to take these crimes seriously and treat them as seriously as if they were bank robberies, because they're more dangerous than bank robberies. People get hurt during them. Let me share some of these horrible stories. The Vice President started highlighting autism. Let's get into the details of what's really going on in Minnesota. These are real cases from our group at CMS. These are adjudicated numbers. There's a fraud scheme in Minnesota where criminals, soon-to-be criminals, pay moms $1,000 roughly in order to enroll their children as being autistic, falsely, dishonestly claiming their children are autistic. They then bill Medicaid, this has already happened, millions of dollars for services that were never rendered, never delivered by a qualified staff member. These schemes disproportionately involve immigrant communities. They're insulated, they're able to organize efforts, and sometimes they don't understand what's going on. And it ultimately diverts resources away from kids who truly have autism. Because if every kid in the neighborhood has autism, then nobody has autism in terms of how you can manage them. There was one behavioral, and by the way, these kids, they carry that diagnosis of autism the rest of their lives. Their mom made a bad decision, the kid pays the price for the rest of their life. There's one behavioral health organization, Mr. Vice President, in Minnesota. They received $11.5 million in Medicaid payments, but the top biller submitted 450 days where they claimed they were working more than 24 hours a day. I mean, even in the White House, that's tough. It's hard to work more than 24 hours a day. How it didn't get picked up is shocking to us at CMS. There are other red flags in Minnesota, including hundreds of beneficiaries receiving treatment linked to one location, which was impossible physically to be true. We had 8 beneficiaries in one of these substance use disorder centers, 8 who were already dead, but the center was still billing us. Not only did they let the person pass, they kept billing for it. That's the level of avarice we're talking about. So CMS is done paying and chasing. We don't think jail sentences are the right way out. These criminals flee the country. Many are foreign nationals. Instead, we're launching the largest action against fraud that we've ever taken. The money's not going to ever leave the building again. We're going to start draining the swamp of the crooks that have inhabited it and are defrauding us. There are 3 bold actions. The first, and for many of you maybe the most important, is we're going to, for the first time, take a massive action to defer funds to a state. Let's start with this Medicaid program in Minnesota, which serves pregnant women. Medicaid takes care of our children. 53% of kids are born into poverty. They're supported through Medicaid. Disadvantaged seniors, individual disabilities. It's unponderable that you would take advantage of these precious programs, yet they're putting it at risk, all of it, by stealing the money. So it's our duty to preserve Medicaid, and what we're going to do is identify the scammers, which we have done in Minnesota. We've identified that they've hijacked, in particular, a certain part of the Minnesota Medicaid system. Said differently, and I'll just put the numbers out there, it's going to be $259 million of deferred payments for Medicaid to Minnesota, which we're announcing as I speak to Governor Walz and his team. And that's based on an audit of the last 3 months of 2025. Restated, $250 million is not going to be paid this month to Minnesota for its Medicaid claims. Now that's $250 million of money. That's your money. It's your taxpayer money. And these home and community-based services, which again are services that are typically things you would do for your family, but for whatever reason your family's not there to provide them, are very hard to audit. And for that reason, there's been a lot of slippage. The guardrails have not been well maintained, and if you're not serious about the integrity of the program, you'll see these problems happening in your state, which is why Minnesota's not alone, although they're the first to receive this action. These high-growth areas of fraud are difficult to police, so we require the states to take these issues seriously. This $250 million deferment is hopefully going to get on the radar screen for the state of Minnesota and make sure they are responsive to our requests. We did what any honest and patient-focused agency would do. We have notified the state and that we will give them the money, but we're going to hold it and only release it after they propose and act on a comprehensive corrective action plan to solve the problem. If Minnesota fails to clean up the systems, the state will rack up $1 billion of deferred payments this year. Governor Walz has 60 days, sir, to respond to our letter. And if providers and beneficiaries are worried about getting their money and services, please call your governor. These are services the governor has already paid for. We are just not reimbursing the state. And to make it clear, there is a rainy day fund in Minnesota, so we are very confident that people will not be hurt in Minnesota. This is not a problem with the people of Minnesota. It's a problem with the leadership of Minnesota and other states who do not take Medicaid preservation seriously. Any delay in services is going to be, should be laid at the seat of Governor Walz. I believe he will take this seriously. They're not the only state that's floundering. We have more announcements from other states coming soon. Second big issue has to do with Medicare. So that was Medicaid in Minnesota, takes care of our most vulnerable populations. Medicare takes care of our seniors. Durable medical equipment. Most of you have not thought much about this category. These are the folks who they serve wheelchairs, canes, they sell knee braces, catheters, Foley catheters. Durable medical equipment suppliers, because they ship prostheses and these items, they're a great target for fraudsters. Here's what they do. They can steal the beneficiary number, and they never ship the product. They pretend to ship the product, but nothing ever gets sent out. So there's no cost of goods sold, there's no inventory, there's no payroll, no one works in the place, it's empty. But they generate millions of dollars of fake bills. There was a national DME fraud scheme that generated $1.1 billion recently in fraudulent orthotic brace orders. The beneficiaries whose numbers were stolen and used, they couldn't get those products. Imagine if you're on an insulin pump and someone steals your number and orders an insulin pump fictitiously, bills Medicare, and then you come and want to get this to deal with your diabetes. You don't get it. That actually happened. And what happens to those patients? They don't know if their blood sugar's so high or so low that they might die. That's the risks that we're allowing by not taking this seriously. So today, issue number 2 is we're announcing a 6-month national moratorium blocking all new enrollments for durable medical equipment, prostheses, orthotics, supplies across the board. These crimes are becoming a major source of fraudulent activity. And I'll just mention, Mr. Vice President, South Florida. Do you ever go to McDonald's?
Yeah, too much.
We had rehearsed this. So there are twice as many durable medical equipment suppliers in South Florida than McDonald's.
Wow.
And that's not because Secretary Kennedy is closing down McDonald's. That's because the amount of fraud is so massive that it's easier to open one of these suppliers than open a bank account, which is why we're working with Secretary Bessent. And part of the reason for this moratorium is it gives us time to be able to deal with these issues that have become massive. And if we just shut down South Florida, they'd all flee to California and to Texas. So we have to shut the whole country down. This unfortunate necessity is going to allow us to get on top of what we believe is billions of dollars of DME frauds. We've already stopped $1.5 billion of billing, but we need more time to shut down these bad guys. But it's going to be effective, and it's not going to touch the people who need these services. We have designed the system so that all the people who are already selling products can continue to sell products until we check them out, but no new DME enrollments, no ownership changes, all the things that fraudsters have done historically will be blocked. This way we're preserving access, but we're not allowing tax dollars to be stolen. Now, you may be asking, why is it so important to crush fraud to assure the affordability of our nation? I'll just give you one example that we just finished dealing with. The Vice President's aware of this. We had skin substitutes that were generating, we believe this coming year, $23 billion in billing. Because we're able to shut that down to where it's supposed to be, because they have a role when used appropriately, every single senior in America, everyone, is going to get $132 extra money this year, just from that one thing that we shut down. That's the amount of money we're talking about, and it affects all of us. And to that note, because every one of you are affected, we want all of you to help us. So the third big announcement is we want to crush fraud by crowdsourcing ideas. We're issuing a request for information. We need and we want your help. The Vice President, myself, the President, Secretary Kennedy, all of us know that all of us are smarter than any one of us. So what can you do? We want your input on how to prevent, detect, and respond to fraud in government-funded healthcare. Whatever ideas you have, we're interested in. Our goal is to supercharge program integrity over the next 6 months. So we put in a request. That means providers and suppliers and payers and technology companies, patient advocates, beneficiaries. If you see fraud, you let us know. A state Medicaid director can show us patterns of fraud that we're not aware of. A provider can help understand compliance burdens and how to deal with those more effectively. Patient advocate, get cracking on making sure that people are aware of fraud. And like we have done already this year by pulling in those kinds of ideas, we've stopped almost $6 billion from leaving the building, but that leaves a lot more out there that we can take advantage of. So over the next 60 days, the Crush Initiative we just issued is us asking you to help us build something better, to help the brave patriots out there who want to play a role to play a role. Call 1-800-HHS-TIPS if you see fraud, or just go to cms.gov/fraud. Those are simple, easy ways for you to help us address the problems the Vice President highlighted. God bless you all, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you. Great job. Very, very, very important initiative, and we'll take a few questions. I didn't expect you to put me on the spot with Bobby Kennedy about my fast food habits, but here we are. Sir in the front.
Two things, Mr. Vice President. First, can you talk about the legal authority under which the federal government pauses legally obligated funds under mandatory funding from Congress, such as Medicaid? And secondly, if you can tell us anything you know about the situation off the coast of Cuba, where there's a speedboat shot. We've been briefed on that. You know, if Americans were killed or injured in it.
Yeah, so on the second thing, actually, Marco briefed me about 15 minutes ago on it, but we don't know a whole lot of details, and so I'll defer to the White House to provide more updates as we get them. Certainly, you know, a situation that we're monitoring. Hopefully, it's not as bad as we fear it could be, but can't say more because I just don't know more. On the question of the legal authorities, I mean, inherent in Congress's assigning of the administration actually, you know, we're the ones who spend this money. Congress appropriates it. We're the ones who actually make sure this goes to the people it ought to go to. And inherent in that is making sure that it only goes to the people that Congress says that it should go to. We shouldn't be sending money to fraudsters. We should not be sending money to companies that are committing mass fraud. We shouldn't be sending money to anybody that's trying to defraud the American taxpayer. So I know, you know, Oz and his team, he's got the best team, I think, in healthcare anywhere in the private or the public sector. It's one of the great things I love about working with Dr. Oz is he's brought great people along with him, and congratulations on this. But I feel quite confident we have the legal authority to do this. And again, I'd reiterate, we don't want to do this. Like, we don't want to be in a situation where the state of Minnesota is being so careless with federal tax dollars that we have to turn the screws on them a little bit so that they take this fraud seriously. You heard Dr. Oz say this. Tim Walz could call him, could call me, could call anybody in the administration, and we've given him 60 days to respond to this. All we need the governor and the administration in Minnesota to do is something quite simple, which is to show that before you give Medicaid funds to somebody, you're taking seriously whether they provided the services that they say that they're providing. And the fact that there are so many people handing out millions and billions of dollars of federal Medicaid money without even confirming that they're doing the thing that they say that they're doing, it's a disgrace. It's a defrauding of the American taxpayer, and we're stopping it. Caitlin.
Two questions. One, on the 60 days that Governor Walz has to respond, what exactly is the condition that he needs to meet for this funding to be released back to his state? I just wasn't really clear on that. And secondly, on Iran, while you're here, can you explain to the American people why the United States would need to strike Iran to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon if the United States obliterated their enrichment program last summer?
Well, I'm not going to make any news on Iran today, Caitlin. I'll let the president make those announcements. As you know, he is sending two of his best negotiators to Geneva tomorrow in order to continue to try to strike the best deal possible for the American people. But the principle is very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us. And in fact, we've seen evidence that they have tried to do exactly that. So the president sending those negotiators to try to address that problem. As the president has said repeatedly, he wants to address that problem diplomatically, but of course the president has other options as well. On what we need to see from Governor Walz, I'll say something about that briefly and then turn it over to Dr. Oz. Look, it's actually pretty simple. What we want to see from the governor of Minnesota, from the entire administration there in Minnesota, is some affirmative steps to make sure that the people who are billing us for Medicaid services are actually providing those Medicaid services. The main source of fraud, whether it's a small business or a bigger company, is you have people who are billing the government millions, tens of millions, billions of dollars saying that they're providing a service, but there's no actual confirmation. There's no follow-up to ensure that they're actually providing those services. We want to see that follow-up from Minnesota. Dr. Oz, maybe you can speak to a little bit more about how exactly we want to see that.
Let me combine both these questions. So on December the 7th, we sent a letter to Governor Walz asking for a corrective action plan, which is a mechanism for us to extract from the state what they think they can do to fix the problems. The answer we got back at the end of the month, which is what the deadline was inadequate. We alerted them to this. We issued guidance that we were going to defer income based on an audit of last quarter's money. So we actually went dutifully through all of the bills that were sent to us. We found that of these high-risk services, roughly half of them, you really couldn't trust the data we were looking at. It's not that the numbers don't add up. The backup to the numbers is not there. So what do we need to have happen? We need to know that the providers actually are the real providers. Oftentimes, there's no person that you can associate with the treatment itself. We need you, after you adjudicate who these providers are, make sure they're not already in trouble for doing bad stuff, and then evaluate all the current providers to make sure they're supposed to be able to provide these services. And there's a whole slew of tools that we can use, including checking before you pay the bill that the bill is legitimate. That prepayment review is incredibly important. It's cumbersome. It's clunky. We wish we didn't have to do it. But I'm going to highlight something that the Vice President mentioned. These are services that we normally would not pay for. They're services we give to you because your family can't do them for you. If it's a hernia operation, there's a dozen people who have credentials, licensing, we can use a scar. But if your service is transporting you to the doctor's office and you can't tell me who actually drove the car and why they billed so much and did the patient even go to the doctor's office, then we have to do our job, which you would want us to do, which is to ask for some backup, and there wasn't any backup. So to echo, 60 days, that's the deadline. We expect to hear back. We've been following the rules meticulously to do this correctly, which is one of the reasons we're optimistic we'll be effective in Minnesota.
Great.
Vice President, I'm just wondering about this huge universe of fraud that you're talking about, $300 billion. Like, how did you arrive at that number? What number is realizable in terms of savings? And you've mentioned California, you've said that you're going to move on to other states. Can you just give us a kind of snapshot of where you see that? And are all of the states that you're going after and where you see these problems ruled by Democratic? I mean, California and Minnesota are both Democratic-run states, so just give us a little bit of a preview.
Well, you said ruled by Democrats. We didn't use that word. You did. But here's what I'd say. $300 billion in the grand scheme of how much the federal government spends on healthcare services, it sounds like a ton of money. It's actually, the federal government spends well over $1 trillion in providing medical services to the American people. And based on what we've seen, based on the amount of services that we've seen that have been billed that are fraudulent, and also based on the fact that in a number of blue states, and this is true as far as I know only in blue states, where you have illegal aliens encouraged to get on the Medicaid program, we actually think $300 billion may be conservative. And we certainly, our ambition here is to get as much of that money back for the American taxpayer as possible. Again, we're taking the social safety net. We're taking something that exists for the benefit of people who can't pay for medicine on their own. We want to help our fellow Americans. We can't do that if those programs are being defrauded by people who either shouldn't be here in the first place or have the legal right to be here but are committing criminal acts by defrauding these systems.
Can I clarify one number?
Go ahead, please.
Just on the numbers, the $300 billion is from the Kaiser Family Foundation assessment of estimated 5% fraud in all healthcare, not just federally funded healthcare. So it's 5% of the total, roughly $6 trillion. We spend almost close to $2 trillion, $1.8 trillion of federal monies. So the federal portion will be about $100 billion. And we believe much of that would be achievable. It's not fraud, it's fraud, waste, and abuse altogether. Sorry.
Yep. No, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you can go first and then you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Vice President. As you know, the Kurds have been loyal allies to the United States for decades. You're fighting dictatorship in Iraq. We're fighting terrorism in the region. And recently, President Masoud Barzani worked closely with the U.S. Special Envoy to Syria to help find a peaceful solution to the conflict there. How do you see the future of the strategic relationship between the Kurdistan and the United States of America?
Well, look, let me be brief here because we're here to focus on the fact that way too many people are defrauding the American population. But, you know, we have a great relationship with the Kurds. The president loves the Kurds. I know that the entire administration, we've had great contacts and great friendships with the people, the Kurdish people in various countries all over the world. And look, our attitude is we want those people to be able to live in peace and harmony and prosperity with their neighbors. We've pursued a foreign policy of peace in part because we want the Kurdish people, but also the Arab people who live there, the Jewish people who live there, the Christians. We want everybody to be able to live in peace. And that has been the main focus of our policy in Syria. It's been the main focus of our policy really all over the world. Ma'am? Yeah. No, let's, thank you.
How do you intend to make sure that the consequences of ending these fraud programs in Minnesota don't impact the people who are enrolled in Medicaid? And at a bigger picture, how do you think that the polls show that Democrats historically have the advantage on healthcare? Do you think that these efforts on fraud might change that for Republicans?
You know, I'm not really worried about the politics. I'm worried about the justice of it all. I think it's offensive that American taxpayers pay into these programs and they are defrauded. And I think in some ways, more significantly than that, it's really sad that American children who need these services aren't able to get them because it's going to fraudsters instead of somebody else. So here's what I think. I mean, look, we're certainly going to make sure that our anti-fraud efforts go after the fraudsters and not after anybody who actually benefits from these services. But I actually think the question is a little off in a way, because the problem is not going after the fraud. The problem is the fact that these programs are being defrauded to begin with. They will not exist. Our social safety net will disappear unless we take fraud more seriously. So what I'm most worried about is that unless we preserve these programs for the next generation, they're going to disappear and all the money is going to go to fraudsters. Go ahead.
You're mentioning a lot about justice of it all. So what exactly would that look like? Dr. Ross mentioned that jail sentences aren't necessarily the right way to go, but is there a way of flossing this money back? Ways to get refunds?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are certainly ways to claw some of the money back. It depends on the circumstances of the case. When you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars potentially in fraud, that's a big universe of cases. There are different ways of anticipating it. You know, you heard Dr. Oz say some of these people, they will commit a crime and then leave the country. Obviously, we're not going to prosecute people who aren't even in the United States anymore. But I really do think that criminal penalties for some of these fraud cases have to happen. We have to make sure that we stop the fraud being committed against the American people. And if you violate the law in the process of defrauding American citizens, you ought to face the full consequences of the law.
And then on that, you said a few weeks ago that there would be a new Assistant Attorney General position to advance this effort. Can you give me an update on a timeline for when we might see a name announced, when you want the Senate to start working on confirmation?
Yeah, so I believe we have the name announced. I would say that Colin is on the Hill maybe today or yesterday. Colin will be the new AAG to help us combat fraud. I believe he's had great meetings all over the Hill today as part of the Senate confirmation process. I think he's impressed a lot of people. He's certainly impressed me. And again, we have a whole of government approach. I mean, what Dr. Oz is doing at CMS is very, very hard work, but it's not the only thing. We're trying to buttress it with a whole of government approach. Scott Bassett at Treasury is going to work on this. We're going to have our great Department of Justice work on this. We want to take this seriously because it's a serious problem for the American people, and so we got to fix it. Go ahead.
Thank you. Will the way that you're handling fraud in Minnesota by withholding this Medicaid reimbursement serve as a playbook for how you'll handle it in other states, or are there other tools that you'll be using that you'd like to preview?
Well, I think it can, certainly. There are certain things that we're doing in Minneapolis and Minnesota that we're not going to be able to do in other parts of the country because the fraud is going to be different in each place. But yeah, I think this basic model of saying to people, hey, you get a massive amount of money to provide a service to people. Did you actually provide that service? The fact that it's even controversial that we're asking these questions as a government goes to show how much the culture of fraud has permeated Washington, D.C. Think about this. We're talking about people who take money from autistic children. They pretend their children or some other person's kid is autistic. They collect a fat check. They don't provide an ounce of services. And then the very money that's supposed to go to needy kids isn't there anymore to help those needy children. The fact that we have so normalized this, and the fact that I guarantee there are going to be voices in the media, there are going to be voices in the state of Minnesota who say, this is hurting children. No. It's hurting fraudsters. The way to protect kids is to go after those fraudsters, which is what we're doing. Sir.
Thank you for taking questions.
Dr. Oz mentioned the word guardrails when it comes to this. Can we expect to see the federal government look to implement new guardrails to prevent the normalization of fraud like this from continuing? Do you believe it would be more effective for states that you're investigating to put up guardrails? Do you think that the best way to do it would be a mixture? And what message should a move like this, what you're announcing today, send to other states that might be under the microscope?
I mean, look, we would love to better work with the states here. We need the states to combat this fraud. And frankly, if Minnesota had done a better job of combating the fraud, we would not be here at this press conference today. We'd send out a letter celebrating the fact that Minnesota had worked with us to cut down on some of the fraud. I'll let Dr. Oz speak a little bit more to that question. But look, the best way for this to work would be for the federal government to work with the state governments. We'd love for that to happen. I think you're going to see that in some states, even some blue states, but you're not going to see it in others.
The working family tax cut legislation, for the first time in a long time, aligned the president and vice president with the governor so they have the same goal. So we've been talking to the states a lot. We are generating some frameworks that we believe states could apply. Medicaid is run by the state. They know their most vulnerable populations well. It's different than Alaska on the North Shore slope where you can't get there this time of year to southern Alabama, lower Alabama, or LA as they call it. But the reality is there are similarities that govern some of these programs, especially the ones that are at high risk. And so we're going to share those best practices. But the techniques that we're using in Minnesota can be applied in other states. But it's the fraud, however, that will drive that. And so there are some states, I mentioned Florida, that's a red state where there's a big fraud problem in the southern part. They're trying to get their arms around it. We've sent a letter to Minnesota, which has a Republican senator. We're very concerned about New York, where the single most prominent job in New York is a personal care service. Retail is not the top job in New York anymore. And in California, there are more hospices, I believe, in Los Angeles County alone than the rest of the country. So these are aberrancies that are hard for the states sometimes to see, but your first inclination, if you're the vice president and he's running a task force, is to look at those areas and say, how can you ignore that kind of a discrepancy, especially when there's been a massive uptick in some of these services in a short period of time?
Great. We'll take just one more question here, sir.
What is your message to the people of Minnesota who are still upset by the ICE surge as well? And this is just one more thing on top of that.
Well, first of all, I think our message to the people of Minnesota is that we love them. They're our fellow citizens. We're trying to do right by them. And part of the reason, in fact, the main reason that we're doing this is that we want to make sure that the people of Minnesota have access to the services that they're entitled to. We want poor kids in Minnesota, lower income families in Minnesota to be able to get the health care that they need. We got to stop the fraud in order to make sure that happens. We want to make sure that if you have a special needs kid and we have a program set up to help that special needs kid, that the money goes to the special needs family, not to a fraudster who's getting rich off the generosity of American taxpayers. Now, you talk about the ICE surge. Again, I think it goes back to the question I just answered, which is so much of what is broken in Minnesota, as far as I can tell, is a lack of cooperation between the state government and the federal government. If you look at any blue city or any blue state or red city or red state, the immigration enforcement that we were doing was going smoothly. We'd find out that there was an illegal alien sex offender at a prison. We'd show up, we'd arrest that person, and we'd send him out of our country. Or maybe that person was a repeat offender and they were out of prison. The local authorities would say, you know what, go and go to this person's address and arrest this guy because we want that violent criminal out of our community. What was so bizarre about Minneapolis is that it was one of the few places in the entire country where they said, no, we're not going to help the federal government get illegal alien sex traffickers out of our community. We're going to do everything that we can to prevent federal immigration enforcement from happening, even when you're going after the very worst of the very worst. Similarly, I would think that if I was the governor or a leader in Minnesota, I would want the benefits that ought by right to go to needy children. I want them to go to those needy children and not to fraudsters, whether they're from the Somali community or anywhere else. But no, we haven't gotten the cooperation. So what I would say to the people of Minnesota is that we want to do right by you. We think you deserve better public services. We think you deserve to have the benefits that you're actually entitled to, and that's why we're doing this. And we encourage everybody in Minnesota, whatever their political affiliation, to work on the state government a little bit, because if we had some better cooperation, we could have common sense immigration enforcement. We could also have less money going to fraudsters, which I would think would be a bipartisan issue. Thank you all.
All right, so you saw the Vice President and Dr. Oz breaking down some information there about fraud, waste, and abuse right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. In the meantime, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform are holding closed-door depositions of former Secretary Hillary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton to question them about their involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. So today, of course, is former Secretary Hillary Clinton expected to, of course, appear today, which she already has. She started her video deposition that will be released by the GOP sometime today or in the near future. What we also know is that the Hillary Clinton deposition has been paused and has gone off the record. An advisor to the Clintons just came out to say it's being paused while they look into a photo leaking from inside the room, which is against committee rules. Benny Johnson posting that photo he received from Representative Lauren Boebert. So there you go. That's the photo from inside the room there at the deposition in upstate New York. So that's the photo of the former Secretary Hillary Clinton. Earlier on the broadcast, we released the information that the Secretary was saying, her opening remarks, and read that live here. Just in case you're just catching up with the news today, you can go ahead and replay this live stream broadcast or just scrub back, just watch it in its entirety. A lot of interviews, a lot of information, a lot of news today on this February 26th, of course, Thursday. Also, according to the AP, the DOJ said it will investigate itself over whether it improperly withheld some Epstein files. That, according to the Associated Press, I saw that via disclose.tv. We're also hearing that New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani will visit President Trump in Washington today for his second visit. So that's happening. All Family Pharmacy, a great sponsor here as we continue our live coverage. We'll be also taking you out to Wisconsin in just a minute. We'll tell you about that in a second. Quick question for you. When was the last time you actually restocked your medicine cabinet? Because most people wait until someone gets sick and then you start scrambling and calling the doctor and waiting for appointments, hoping the pharmacy has what they need. Well, you can have what you need right there at your house in that medicine cabinet through All Family Pharmacy. You can stock up in advance on essentials like antibiotics, antivirals, ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, Tamiflu, and more. More than 300 prescription medications are available, everything reviewed and prescribed safely by their licensed doctors and shipped straight to your door. You can be prepared before you need it. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, 10% off. Also, angelpaste.com, check it out. You can go and use the RSBN promo code there. You'll get a percentage off. We also have some of that here in the studio. We just got this shipment in today. So, Miracle Cream, Angel Paste, you can check it out there. Great patriots at Angel Paste in Spring, Texas, hiring veterans as well. So, awesome to have them with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. All right, it's 12:54 Thursday, February 26th. We'll be going to a live interview, I believe in Washington, D.C. with Brian Kelsey. He's with the America First Policy Institute. We'll be diving into the president's tariffs as well. A lot of news about tariffs earlier in the week. So let's go to Brian right now. Thanks so much for joining us, Brian.
I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Definitely. So let's talk about your role at America First Policy Institute. Can you inform our viewers what your role is there? And then we can dive into some of the tariffs.
Yes, at America First Policy Institute, we issue policy papers on a number of topics, and we also employ attorneys such as myself, and I serve as a senior counsel there.
Awesome. So America First Policy Institute, as you know, Brooke Rollins, Linda McMahon doing great as cabinet leaders. And then we've interviewed Carla Sands and Thomas Lane. I mean, it seems like America First Policy Institute is on the right side of history, which is always good to see. So let's talk about some of the tariffs out there as well. What do you know about the latest there?
Yeah, well, and just speaking in generally about the economy, I mean, it is finally headed in the right direction. When President Trump came into office, people were talking about the fear of stagflation, which is about the worst place the economy can be in, where you have inflation, as we all experienced under the last administration, prices going up high, and then at the same time stagnation, meaning that the economy is stagnant. It's not growing. And so the problem in that situation is the Federal Reserve doesn't know what to do. Do they raise interest rates to tackle the one problem? Do they lower them to tackle the other? And no one's talking about that problem anymore. The president has solved that problem. He's got the economy headed in the right direction. It's still got a long way to go. But part of what he's accomplished, in addition to the 172,000 new jobs that just came in last month, all of which are private sector and which are going to Americans and not illegal workers anymore. In addition to those wins, he has put in place his tariff policy because other countries were taking advantage of America for years, imposing these high tariff rates on us, and we were not doing the same in return. And he's winning these deals, and he will continue to do so. He faced a setback on Friday morning from the Supreme Court under one particular law, but I'm here to tell you that there are several other laws that he's got that he can use to continue with his policy.
And it's great to have you, a lawyer, on the broadcast. Is there any way to break down some of these other avenues in a 30,000-foot view, if possible?
Yeah, sure. So that particular decision that came down Friday from the Supreme Court was limited to one particular law, IEEPA, and it said that he cannot impose his tariffs under IEEPA. However, we disagree with that, and we filed an amicus brief on behalf of America First Policy Institute saying that that was wrong. But we only got 3 votes, then the other 6 went the other way. But in those 3 votes, Justice Kavanaugh was very clear. There are 5 other laws by which he could issue these same tariffs. And so he's already talked about using at least 3 of those 5. There's Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. That allows him to immediately impose tariffs of up to 15% for 150 days. So he has said that he will do that across the board to all countries and begin to reinstitute these tariffs. And then at the end of that one, he's talked about another law as well, Section 301 of that act, which allows him to impose tariffs much higher than 15%. And for more than 150 days, it simply requires the U.S. Trade Representative to go through a process by which they determine that there are other countries that are using unfair trade practices against us. And of course, unfortunately, we know that that is the case.
5 or 6 other avenues, 5 or 6 other laws that the president can go through when it comes to the tariffs. And in closing, sir, thank you again for joining us. And for those of you joining us right now, this is Brian Kelsey. He's with the America First Policy Institute, breaking down the tariff news. Also, can you also break down in simplicity why and what this is all about? Tariffs obviously are taxes with imports and goods and all that, but how does that benefit us in all of this?
Well, at the end of the day, this administration is the first one of any party that's really fighting for American workers by recognizing that other countries cannot continue to take advantage of America by imposing these high rates of tariffs. So they're costs that they're adding to American goods. They've really hollowed out other countries, especially China, of course, has just hollowed out American manufacturing because they don't allow our goods to be sold in their countries, while at the same time they're flooding our markets with their own goods. And so that's why this conversation is important. It's about bringing jobs back to America. It's about making sure that the American workers are put first when we deal with other countries.
Brian Kelsey with the America First Policy Institute. Thank you so much for breaking that down for us here live on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Appreciate you having me on today.
Definitely. All right, awesome. Well, great interview there with Brian Kelsey, the America First Policy Institute, doing some great work out there. Meantime, let's go to a couple of our sponsors as we get ready to go to Wisconsin for a live event. Let's go to Rumble Wallet. As you see there on your screen, you may have seen those conversations happening online lately. The censorship, unfortunately, is back in various places, and it's happening everywhere. Platforms control narratives and push the stuff they want us to see. So we need to fight back in that information area and the financial area. And Rumble is one of the only companies that has really stood the test of time and deserves our support. So on one side, Rumble is challenging big tech censorship, but now on the other side, they have introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks shutting anyone off. Banks can actually cancel our accounts and freeze our cards, so that's why Rumble Wallet has been launched, a wallet that no one can cancel, and a wallet that supporters can use to instantly tip creators like us without any middleman taking the cuts. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. So it's yours and only yours to protect your future and your family. So you could buy and save digital assets like Bitcoin and Tether Gold in one place. Now, Tether Gold is real gold on the blockchain with ownership of physical gold bars. It's not only a wallet to buy and save, but it also allows you to support your favorite creators by easily tipping them with the click of a button. So support our show and others out there on Rumble. And of course, you can click that tip button as well. Wallet.rumble.com. You could download Rumble Wallet today, open an account, and step away from the big banks for good. Wallet.rumble.com or search Rumble Wallet in the app stores. All right, Thursday, February 26th. Let's go to one more sponsor. Let's go to MyPillow, MyPillow.com. You see the mattress and topper sale. Well, MyPillow is also excited to announce that they are extending the mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, you can save $40 on the new spring MyPillow bed sheets, any size, any color. And you can also save on a lot of other great products there. Get the 6-piece bath towel sets for only $39.98. The initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And of course, the best-selling standard MyPillow, just $17.98. All right, MyPillow.com/RSBN. Great sponsorships here at Right Side. It's 1:01 Eastern. Again, that video deposition, obviously not live right now when it comes to Hillary Clinton. So we'll be seeing that video sometime once the GOP releases that. And then tomorrow is President Bill Clinton in there taking the questions from the majority and the minority of the House. Let's go to one clip that we've played throughout the broadcast. Let's go to clip 1. This is, again, from the House GOP committee about the depositions when it comes to the Clintons' involvement or relationship or connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
We're going to hold both Clintons in criminal contempt of Congress.
I'm going to note for the record that former Secretary Clinton is not present.
Today, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform meets to advance 2 resolutions recommending that the House of Representatives find former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusing to comply with duly issued subpoenas. The question is now on favorably reporting the William J. Clinton contempt report as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 34, the nays are 8, with 2 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find William J. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with the subpoena duly issued by this committee. The question is now on favorably reporting the Hillary R. Clinton contempt report as amended.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the ayes are 28, the nays are 15, with 1 voting present.
The ayes have it. Pursuant to this vote, the committee hereby favorably reports and adopts this report recommending that the House of Representatives find Hillary R. Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusal to comply with a subpoena duly issued by this committee. We will move the report to the full House. Today, the Clintons must be held accountable for their actions, and Democrats must support these measures or they will be exposed as hypocrites.
But if Comer tries to bring this resolution, he wants to lock Hillary Clinton up, consistent with what Donald Trump's been saying now for 10 years, lock her up, then we'll deal with it appropriately.
All right, it's been kind of a whirlwind over the past couple hours right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network, covering a lot of different stories, a lot of different topics, from the Epstein files to tariffs to the straight up basics of God, family, country, and our love for all 3 plus more. How about freedom, common sense, truth, justice, and the American way? You know, when I look at all of it, you just want to have that freedom continue. You want to have the United States Constitution continue to be the law of the land here in this country. We don't want to have what other countries are doing out there and starting to do, going towards either communism, socialism, or just overall the whole censorship thing. Stay silent, don't talk about the truth. Well, in America we can. And we know that the majority of the people, and a massive majority of you guys out there, are on the right side of history. Isn't it awesome? I simply asked that the other day on Truth Social. I said, aren't you glad to be on the right side of history? Sometimes it's simple common sense stuff you can talk about because that's what it's all about. A lot of times people get way too technical. We don't need to get that technical. God, family, country, freedom. Done. Anyway, Let's go to Wisconsin. Vice President J.D. Vance speaking at an event there, and I believe there were some pre-programmed speakers as well, but I think this is just the J.D. Vance speech, so let's go there to Wisconsin for that.
Thank you all. Thank you. Please, please. It's so great to be back in Wisconsin. Am I saying it right? Wisconsin. All right. I got a thumbs up from a couple of these congressmen, so I must be doing it okay. You know, I think Kelly Loeffler, our small business administrator, is one of the unsung heroes of the Trump administration. She has single-handedly rooted out hundreds of millions of dollars, I should say, and on to billions of dollars over the next couple of years of fraud against the American people. So we got to give it up for Kelly. She's doing a great job for all of us, saving us some money. I will say I took special note of one thing that she said, though. Kelly said that I'm the coolest vice president in American history, and I said, Kelly, that is a low standard. That is a very low bar, but I do think that I clear that bar, but I think that was a low standard she set me to. But let me say a few words of gratitude before we get started today, because I'm so grateful to be back in this great state with all of its amazing people. You all know this, Wisconsin is a state with a proud tradition of building great American products with Wisconsin hands, and that's what we're here to celebrate today in this great facility. Now, that would not be possible, of course, without the workers and the leadership of Point Precision. And I've been learning a little bit about this facility just because I knew I was going to come here today. 165 great Wisconsin employees making great American products at a good wage. This is a place that rewards dignified work, and this is a place that makes America and the whole community richer. So you guys should be proud of yourselves. I want to thank the family, Joe and Cindy, and their beautiful kids, and all. It looks like we got some grandkids here, Joe and Cindy. That's amazing. Life's greatest blessing, of course. So great to have you guys. Great to see you guys. Wait, what is today? Thursday? Should you all be in school right now? I caught you. But this is a good excuse, right? The Vice President of the United States comes to town, so you ought to get a get out of school for the day card. But I want to thank a couple of other people here, because all the things that I'm going to talk about, all the things we've been doing in the Trump administration would have been impossible without a couple of great congressional allies. And so in particular, I want to call out Representative Derek Van Orden. My dear friend Derek, it's hard to miss him. Thank you. I got to tell you, sometimes in Washington, you get to Washington, there are people you can trust, there are people you can't trust. Derek is one of those guys you can trust to always fight for the people who are in this room. He knows exactly where he came from, a proud veteran. And Derek was talking with me backstage. He's like, we got to do a little video together just so we can get it out there for the congressional campaign. And I said, okay, absolutely. What do you need me to say? And he said, well, just say that, we fought alongside each other in Vietnam. I said, Derek, if we were Democrats, we could get away with that, but I don't think that's going to fly. We're Republicans. These media reporters are not going to let us get away with that, but there are so many great things about Derek, but all of the amazing things. No taxes on tips, that happened because of Derek. No taxes on overtime, that happened because of Derek. No taxes on Social Security, that happened because of Derek. So if you are a citizen in this district and you see a big tax refund check come next month or the month after that, whenever you file your taxes, remember it was Derek Van Orden who made it happen, and it was congressional Democrats who tried to stop it. So we're going to send Derek Van Orden back to Washington? Yes. We've also got President Trump's endorsed candidate for governor of Wisconsin, Tom Tiffany. Tom, please stand up and be recognized. Another great guy. Another guy without whom we could not have accomplished all the great things that we did in Washington, D.C. Now he wants to come back home and serve as governor. Are we going to make Tom Tiffany the next governor of Wisconsin? There we go. And then finally, if I'd had a few people stand up, I want to recognize Representative Grothman. Where's Representative Grothman? Thank you, sir. It's good to see you. Where's Representative Brian Stile? Brian, a great guy. We're not in Brian's district, but a great guy. We've got Wisconsin GOP Chairman Brian Schimming. Where's Brian Schimming? Thank you. State Treasurer John Lieber. Where's John Lieber? Thank you, man. Thank you for your service. And finally, State Senate President Patrick Testin. Patrick, where are you? Thank you. Now, here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the stakes coming up in November, because it feels like this election in November is very far away. But if anything, the State of the Union should have showed us that we cannot give power back to congressional Democrats. Now, I am fundamentally an optimist about this country. I believe most people, most human beings, most American citizens, whether they got a D next to their name or an R next to their name, or they have no political affiliation, they're good people. They love our country. They want our country to thrive and prosper. But I got to tell you, after the State of the Union, I'm not so sure that is true of the congressional Democrats that we saw at the State of the Union address. As the President of the United States said very well, you watch their reaction to some of what he was saying, and all I could think was, these people are kind of crazy. These congressional Democrats, if you think about all of the things that they were doing, and I got to tell you, of course, I've got the best seat in the House in many ways, right? I'm sitting right next to the Speaker of the House. I'm sitting right behind the President of the United States. And I've got one internal monologue going on, one thought in my head the whole time, which is don't make a stupid face for 2 hours, which is hard for me, when you're on TV for 2 hours and the Democrats are doing crazy things. So I'll give you a little lay of the land. So to the left, my left, is all of the Republicans, okay, because I'm sitting right behind the president. And to my right is some Republicans, but mostly the Democrats. And so I see the reaction of all the congressional Democrats, and it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So you say, like, for example, you have this beautiful little girl, had such a sweet moment with her dad. You may have remembered. She was probably 6 years old. She had been assaulted by an illegal immigrant. She had had a very bad, I think, medical prognosis, but it turned out that she was okay. This 6-year-old girl, hurt by a human being who never should have been in this country in the first place, who was led into this country by Joe Biden and the Democrats, and she's hugging her dad, and she's so excited, and you can tell, and I think everybody's heart feels very, you get that warm and fuzzy feeling, and then I look over at the congressional Democrats, and they're just scowling. They cannot clap their hands for a 6-year-old who survived an attack from an illegal alien. What is that? What kind of a person can't stand up and cheer for an innocent young girl who's doing well, who's showing the entire country strength and resilience? And then the president had this line, I'm not going to get it exactly right, but he said, if you believe, stand up and cheer if you believe that the American government's first priority should be to look after American citizens instead of illegal aliens. And all the Republicans, including Derek and everybody else, stands up and starts cheering. And then you look over the Democrats. Complete silence, no reaction at all. The one thing that got at least some of the Democrats to stand up and cheer was the Olympic hockey team, which we're, of course, very proud of. But you got to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, what is it about a political party that cannot stand up and cheer for a 6-year-old girl who survived an attack? What is it about a political party that can't stand up and cheer for the fact that we have rising wages and low inflation for the first time in a very long time in the United States of America? What is it about a political movement that sees the mother of a woman who was murdered on a bus? Because the president highlighted this woman, her 22-year-old daughter was riding on a bus to work, was killed by a violent criminal who was let out of jail 13 times by Democrat leadership, should have never been on our streets, and then murdered an innocent girl. We recognized her mother, her strength and her character and her grief, and I think we all kind of grieve with her a little bit, and the Democrats cannot even stand up and cheer for that. And so the question of the next election is not do we want low taxes, and of course we do. It's not do we want a secure border, and of course we do. It's a more fundamental question than that. Do we want to give power back to the people who opened our border, who raised your taxes, who won't even cheer for a 6-year-old girl who was wounded because of their bad policies? And I think our answer to that is hell no. We want to give power back to the people like Derek Van Orden who fight for us. And here's the thing, it's funny, I talk to the president multiple times a day. It's kind of the job of vice president. You talk to the president a lot. And every single day, the president will say to me, what have we done today? Got to do more, got to do more, got to do more, okay? The president has such an intense work pace. And I sometimes think, Mr. President, we got to take stock of all the incredible things that we have accomplished over the last year. When Joe Biden and the Democrats left us, the government of this country, we had the highest inflation that we had ever had in 40 years. Thanks to Donald Trump and congressional Republicans, we now have inflation at 2.4%, the lowest in 5 years, and it's coming even lower, ladies and gentlemen. Under Joe Biden and the Democrats, the average American lost $3,000 in take-home pay. And under Donald Trump and Republicans, in just 1 year, the average American has seen $1,700 increase in take-home pay. That is more money in your pocket, and that's what we're here to do, is make you guys more prosperous. Under Joe Biden in the Green New Scam, we had the highest energy prices that we had had maybe in my entire lifetime. And then we had Republicans take over with a simple principle, which is drill, baby, drill. Get the oil and the gas out of our territory. Use American workers to provide American companies the energy that they need. And now we've got gas prices lower, we've got electricity and utility bills lower, and we've got companies just like Point Precision that can actually afford the cost of doing business, which they couldn't do when Joe Biden was in charge. So it's funny to me, when the Democrats talk about affordability, you heard the president talk about this in the State of the Union address. Hearing the Democrats talk about affordability is like hearing an arsonist complain about fire. It's your fault. You guys left us a country with sky-high inflation. You all left us a country where we were going everywhere but America for energy. You left us a United States of America where the average family was $3,000 poorer. So our attitude is, you know what? When you talk about affordability, you're exactly right. You caused an affordability problem, congressional Democrats, and we are here to fix it. Now, I want to say a few more things, then I'll take some questions from the reporters. So one of the things that I love about what the president has done is he is trying to cut out the fraud and corruption in the federal government. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it is very, very rampant. We have way too many people who got way too comfortable getting rich off of your tax dollars instead of providing the services that they need or maybe giving you a tax cut. We had fraudsters getting rich off of your generosity. I did a little press conference yesterday with Dr. Oz, who runs our Medicare and Medicaid services. And beforehand, we were talking about some of the fraud that he had uncovered in just a couple of months. Let me give you an example. In next door Minnesota, in Minneapolis, not a very well-governed state, you had a situation where we have a service that the federal government provides. The states actually provide it, and then they get reimbursement from the federal government. And you know what they do? They help autistic kids with after-school services. Because if you know anybody who has autism or is on the spectrum, sometimes you need a little bit of extra help. And so we've got a program there to help those special needs kids to make it easier for their families. What was happening is that Somali fraudsters, many of whom were illegal immigrants, shouldn't have been in this country to begin with. You had Somali fraudsters who were saying that their kids were autistic even though they weren't. They were collecting a fat check from all of you, and they were getting rich from it. So what happens? You get poorer, your tax dollars go to Somali fraudsters, and worst of all, You've got special needs kids in American communities that we ought to be helping, and instead of helping them, we're helping fraudsters who don't have the problem to begin with. That is a scandal, and it's something that Joe Biden and congressional Democrats promoted with their open border, encouraged it, and funded it. Now, I'm here to tell you that the job of your government is not to open your borders and allow fraudsters to come in and take advantage of you. The job of your government is to shut the border and shut off the fraud, and that's exactly what we're doing in the Trump administration. But you know, it's actually not just the people on the ground who are committing some of this fraud. Some of the worst corruption is the corruption that you see in the federal government. And I know Derek and a lot of these other guys were standing up cheering for this. Why don't we stop allowing congressmen and congresswomen to get rich off of insider trading? Is that common sense? So again, I've got a seat unlike any other. And the President of the United States, first of all, the whole time the President's given his speech, I was amazed at his self-control, because I would not have had it if I was up there with the microphone, because these two women, far-left Democrats, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, they're sitting next to each other, and they're talking loudly the entire time, okay? So there's a point at which I almost look over at him and go like this. But see, this is the thing you can't do when you're sitting behind the president. I would have gotten in trouble for that. Even Derek wouldn't have defended me if I did that, but it's just nails on a chalkboard. They're talking, they're interrupting. The president was completely unfazed by it. But again, you're sitting there, and then the president gets to the point where he says, you know what? We are going to stop congressmen and congresswomen from getting rich off of insider trading, from violating the public trust that you have put in them and get rich off of insider trading. Of course, a lot of people stand up and cheer. Most of the Democrats don't. You know who was not standing up and cheering? Nancy Pelosi. I have never seen a person more angry in my life than Nancy Pelosi when the President of the United States is calling out insider trading. Ladies and gentlemen, my hope for all of you, of course, is that we can make you richer and more prosperous and safer in your communities. But my hope for all of you is that you find somebody who loves you as much as Nancy Pelosi loves insider trading, because then you will have a very good life indeed. But on all these things, we just have to stop the fraud. The government exists to serve you. We want the government, of course, to be smaller. We want it to be limited in its scope. We don't want it in your pocketbooks. We don't want it telling you what to do. But there are a few things you need the federal government to do. You need it to provide for the common defense. We need a good military. You know, we need it to ensure that people like special needs kids are able to get the essential services that they need and can't afford. I happen to believe I grew up in a poor family. When we have people who are down on their luck, we don't want those people to starve or not be able to get medical care. We want to make sure that Americans are taking care of Americans. But that is not possible if we allow fraudsters to come into our country and get rich off of your generosity of spirit. And so I want you, when you go to the polls in November, I don't want you to just think about all the great things that we've accomplished, all the great things that we've talked about. I don't want you just to think about no taxes on tips and lower gas prices. I want you to think, who is going to protect my money from fraudsters? And the simple answer is, it's Derek Van Orden and congressional Republicans. It is not the Democrats who created this problem to begin with. Now, I got so many notes here. I could sit here and go on for another 45 minutes. Housing prices are down. Apartment rents are down 4 months in a row. We came in saying we wanted to make housing more affordable, and we're starting to make good progress on that. The annual cost of a new mortgage in just a year is down by $5,000. And my friends, if we could get Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates, because the inflation is now low, then those mortgage costs would come down even further. I happen to believe, and I know the President of the United States does, that when young people look at their country, one of the best things that we can do for our young families is make it possible for them to afford a home again and raise a family in a piece of land that they themselves own. I happen to believe that we do not want our young people to be permanent renters in the society that was built by their parents and grandparents. We are going to fight for our young families to own a home, and that's exactly what we've been doing for the past year. Let's keep on doing it. But let me just close with this one final thought, and then I'll take some questions from the media. There are a lot of specific issues that matter. We could talk about all of them. We could talk about the fact that we've got a closed border and they opened it. We could talk about the fact that we've got the lowest murder rates in the United States of America in 100 years. And you wonder, how did that happen so quickly? 2 reasons. Number one, we empowered our great law enforcement officers to do their job, and the last administration was holding back. And 2, we got a lot of violent criminals the hell out of this country and send them back to where they belong. That's how you get a low murder rate. We got so many things we could brag on, so many things that we still got to do. We still got to work to make homeownership affordable for our young families. You know, you've probably seen the headlines about, you know, the stock market has been doing incredibly well because the economy's been doing incredibly well. But the president asked me probably 4 months ago, he said, what about the Americans who don't own stocks? And so he's created a new program where we can allow the 35% of Americans that don't own stocks to open up the kind of accounts like a 401k that some workers have access to, other workers don't. We're going to allow every worker to open up that kind of account. So when the stock market goes up, it's good for every single American citizen, not just the 65% of people who own stocks. We want to make it good for everybody. So there's still so much more that we can do. But the fundamental question, I don't think, is this issue or that issue. The fundamental question is, who fights for you? And what I saw at the State of the Union, when I saw all those Democrats sitting on their hands, even when we're celebrating, you know, little girls who survived a terrible attack, it hit me that these Democrats, most of them, they don't serve you. Now ask yourself, why are they sitting on their hands? I would like to think, I don't know them personally, maybe Derek would disagree with me, but I'm going to be a little charitable to those congressional Democrats. And I think when that little girl was standing up hugging and kissing her dad, that those Democrats, there was at least a part of them, the human part in their soul, that wanted to stand up and cheer for that little girl. And all of them sat on their hands. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? And the answer is because they know they don't answer to you. They answer to somebody else. They answer to people who have corrupted this country. They answer to people who opened the border. They answer to people who got rich off of illegal immigrant labor. We want you guys to get rich off of the labor of American citizens. We want American workers to get rich for working hard, not illegal aliens. And that, to me, is the fundamental difference between congressional leadership and congressional Democrats and the congressional Republicans under the leadership of this president. These guys, they don't serve you. Watch a speech of any of the congressional Democrats. Go watch if you can handle it. Maybe have a few good Wisconsin beers beforehand and prepare yourself. But watch a speech when these guys talk about illegal immigration, and then watch a speech when they talk about manufacturing jobs for American workers. That doesn't give them passion. That gives Donald Trump passion. That gives Derek Van Orden passion. The idea that every single one of you should have a good job, a good life if you work hard and play by the rules. The idea that our young families should be able to own a stake in their country, that's what fires us up. That's what we're fighting for in government. But you watch these congressional Democrats, what really fires them up, they get really mad at the idea that we are deporting illegal immigrants. They talk about the dreams of illegal immigrants who have come into our country, but what about the dreams of you and your children? Because that's who I'm fighting for. That's who Donald Trump is fighting for, and that's who Derek Van Orden is fighting for. I'm not going to tell you, and I know there are a lot of people who are going to watch clips of this or even watching it live right now. I'm not going to tell you you're going to agree with us, agree with me on every single issue. That'd be impossible. Even in the Republican Congress, which is just, 220 or so very good guys, you've got disagreements of opinion. You've got some people who will say this thing about this issue and something else about another issue. Disagreement is fine, but I'm not asking you to agree with us on everything. I'm asking you to remember who serves you. And what I know about Donald Trump and the congressional Republicans is that we wake up every single day and we think about how do we fight for you. The question in November is, do we give power to the people who fight for corruption, who fight for fraud, who fight for illegal aliens, or do we give the government to the American citizens for whom it was designed and for whom it was created? I think I know the answer. Let's vote for our people. Let's vote for Derek Van Orden next November. Thank you all. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Okay. Thank you. Please have a seat, and what we'll do is we'll answer a few questions from the media, and I would ask that the local reporters get first dibs here, and then we'll answer as many questions as we've got time for. So go ahead.
Alex Loroff with Spectrum News 1. Mr. Vice President, there was a poll released yesterday of Wisconsin voters where 70% of respondents said their biggest concerns right now are affordability and the cost of living.
Sure.
What can still be done at the federal level to ease some of those affordability concerns that Wisconsinites still have?
Well, look, it's our top concern, too. We want people to be able to afford a good life. Nothing breaks my heart more than the idea that you've got somebody who goes out, they bust their rear end, they come home, they want to give their kids a nice meal, maybe once or twice a year they want to take their kids on a nice vacation. We want people to be able to afford that so long as they work hard and play by the rules. And I think the thing that we've tried to remind ourselves of in the Trump administration is we were put in a very big hole. When you talk about the average American family under Biden's leadership that lost $3,000 of take-home pay, we think every single day, how do we get that $3,000 back and then some? You heard me say earlier, and this is a true statistic, that the average American family has gained about $1,400 under the Trump administration just in about a year and a month. Now that's something we're very proud of, but we think every single day that still means that compared to when Biden took over, those Americans are still running behind. They're still catching up. So I think what we have to do every single day is come up with ideas for how to make the American people's lives better, and that's what we're doing. Some of this is the policies that we've already put in place take a little bit of time to work their way through the system. Some of it is we got to keep on working at it. You know, a few months ago, the President of the United States had the big pharmaceutical companies into the Oval Office. And normally what happens is these big pharmaceutical companies, they come to Washington, thanks to the fraud and corruption, and they get a big fat paycheck from congressional Democrats. You know what they got instead? They got a lecture from the President of the United States. Why is it that the people in this room, for my entire life and then some, paid the highest prescription drug prices in the world, while people in England or France or other rich countries paid much lower prices? And the reason is because the pharmaceutical companies took advantage of us. That was corrupt. It was unacceptable. Now, you're already starting to see this with certain medications, and you're going to see it with more, but the President of the United States said, we are done paying more than Europe for prescription drugs. We want to pay what they pay, and if you're not going to take that deal, then get the hell out of my office. Well, they took that deal. So we got to keep working at it, but I'd say to Wisconsin voters, whether they're conservative or liberal or in the middle, I'd say to them, ask yourselves what kind of a hole the Joe Biden era put us in, and do you want to give power back to the people who created those problems, or do you want to double down on the administration that has busted our tails for the last year to fix those problems? Let's double down on the leadership that's fixing the problems, not the leadership that created them.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Matt Smith from WISN TV in Milwaukee. On the fraud efforts and what we saw in Minnesota yesterday, here in Wisconsin, the governor has refused to give over the SNAP data here in the state, along with the voter data. I'm curious, is there a point, or at what point would the administration withhold federal funds from Wisconsin?
Well, look, we're going to look at every option that we have because we've got to stop this terrible fraud, but that is absurd. Ask yourself a question. Why would the government of Wisconsin not want to help us kick fraud off of the welfare rolls and kick fraud off of the voter rolls? And the only answer I can possibly come up with is because they like to cheat. There's no other real explanation. Now, the governor might say, in fact, I'm sure the governor would say this, let me just be charitable to those who disagree with us. The governor would say, well, there isn't as much fraud as the Trump administration believes there is. Well, even if that's true, and it's not, but even if that's true, let's get what fraud there is off the voter rolls and off the welfare rolls. You know the right number of people who should be illegally voting in American elections? 0. You know the number of people who should be fraudulently collecting food stamps? 0. I want those benefits to exist for the people who need them. The only way to promise that is to get the fraud out of the system, and that's what we're trying to do in the Trump administration. No more fraud, no more corruption. It shouldn't be hard.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ellie Davis, Local 5 News. What should data centers do to be good community partners?
Well, that's a very, very good question. And you saw the president talk about this in the State of the Union address. Look, there's a good news and a bad news with data centers. Now, the good news is, first of all, they're big facilities. You create a lot of construction jobs. And this next generation of the technological revolution, you need those data centers to make that run. Those data centers are like the gasoline of the technology revolution that we're going to see over the next 75 years. And I don't know about you all, but I want America to win that technology revolution. I don't want China or some other country to win it. And so that's why we got to have these things. Now, here's the downside. If those centers are built and the local governments aren't ensuring that there's enough power for those data centers, then it's going to increase electricity costs for everybody else. And so what we think the data centers have got to do is they've got to work with the local governments, with the state governments, and in the federal government, we are trying to do everything that we can so that if you build a data center, for example, you can just build a power plant right next door. What I think we ought to be working towards is you build those data centers and electricity costs come down for American citizens instead of going up for American citizens. The data centers can afford it. We got to make sure that they're good neighbors so that when they come in and build these great buildings, the people in their neighborhood, the people in their community benefit too, and that's through lower power. That's the best way they can be good neighbors. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Laura Schulte. I'm a reporter with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And in Wisconsin, rural hospitals are struggling. Closures are creating healthcare deserts for parts of the state. And what can be done federally to keep those hospitals open and providing necessary care to community members?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. It's a very, very serious problem. And unfortunately, this, like so much of else of what's going on in our country right now, is a problem that we inherited from the last administration. If you look at the number of rural hospital closures that were happening in 2022 and 2023 and 2024, it was really accelerating. And it's one of the reasons why it's not a provision that's talked about as much, but if you look in the big, beautiful bill, the working families tax cut, however you're calling it, in that legislation, there is a multi-billion-dollar rural hospital fund to try to help these rural hospitals persevere in tough times, stay open, provide essential services, and get them to a place where they're on firmer financial footing. Nothing like that, I don't believe, Derek, had ever existed in the federal government before, but we said, look, we cannot let these rural hospitals just disappear, so we've created this fund to try to, support the ones that can stay open and try to slow the closures for the ones that are going to have to close. We think that we're starting to see some good evidence from those. It takes a little bit of time for that tens of billions of dollars to work its way through the system, but that's the number one thing. And then the number two thing is the Trump administration did a number of things in the first term, and we're trying to do this in the second term to give patients more choice. Because what we often do in our healthcare system, like for example, if you're a veteran, under the Biden administration, we would force veterans to drive an hour and a half away to a big city hospital when they could maybe go to a telehealth appointment in their own home or maybe drive 15 minutes down the road to the local doctor. So we've tried to empower people to have more choice, because if they have more choice, they're going to be able to stay in their communities, which means more money going to those rural healthcare organizations. And that's the way that we save rural healthcare too. It's a tough problem. I'm not going to pretend it's easy, but we are working as hard as we can to make sure that the people in our rural communities still have access to great healthcare. Thank you.
Stephanie Hoff with the Midwest Farm Report Radio Network, talking to farmers across the state of Wisconsin. My question for you today is, commodity markets have not been friendly to Wisconsin farmers. I'm talking corn, soybeans, and dairy. What is the administration doing to bolster trade, increase export markets, and those relationships to bring market prices back up?
Yeah, so the good news on that is that our great Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke, has been on this from the very beginning. I think it was maybe the first cabinet meeting where Brooke comes up to me and says, JD, the farmers have inherited a mess, and we've got to do everything that we can to ensure that they can stay afloat during this very tough time. So one of the things that we're doing is making sure that wherever commodity prices are, that our farmers can do their job, they can provide their food, and if they fall on tough times, there's a little bit of a support mechanism there. Now, you might say, why do we do that? But the answer is actually very simple. If we don't have American sovereignty in our food supply, we don't have sovereignty at all. If you cannot depend on your neighbors to provide your food, if the food that you're relying on comes from another country, say goodbye to sovereignty, because that country is the one that controls you. The country that controls the food is the country that will ultimately control the entire world. So we've made very strong efforts, and we're going to keep on working at this with our farmers to ensure that whatever commodity prices are, they're able to stay afloat, they're able to grow their products. We know that they're struggling, and we're trying hard to fix that. The other thing the president has done is, for a very long time, China, one of the biggest buyers of soybeans, they would take advantage of American markets, but they would not take the product of Wisconsin farmers, whether it's corn or soybean or whatever it is, they would not offload that product into their country. Now, that was a fundamental unfairness, and that's why the president is fighting back and making sure that we have fair trade practices. If you don't have countries honoring the United States of America, our great farmers and our great manufacturers, if you have countries that are able to come in and undercut the wages of our workers, but we're not able to export their product, ladies and gentlemen, that is not trade, that is international fraud, and that's what's been happening far too long all over the world. The President of the United States is stopping it. We're going to keep on stopping it to the benefit not just of Wisconsin farmers, but Wisconsin manufacturers too. So we'll take two more questions here. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Dylan Eckhart, 9 News, out of Wausau, WAOW. Nationally, there has been bipartisan legislation introduced sticking with agriculture. For example, the Domestic Organic Investment Act, which would make a USDA's development grant permanent, allowing for grants for farmers and businesses. How will the administration continue to work with local farmers and businesses in Wisconsin, especially central Wisconsin, to expand on some of those ideas and introduce legislation?
Well, you heard a little bit of my answer in the last question, but you're right that there's a lot of legislation that's working through the Congress, and as broken as Congress is as an institution sometimes, there are still some good pieces of bipartisan legislation that happen. Luckily, I think agriculture is one of those areas where you still have some good bipartisan pieces of legislation. You ask how we're going to work with local farmers, especially in central Wisconsin, and the answer is just to listen. You know, we've got a great legislative team at the White House, but we've also got a lot of great allies like Derek Van Orden in Congress. And what these guys are doing is they're coming to us with ideas. And they're saying, look, we heard from our constituents, this is something we've got to do. You know, whatever the product is, you know, sometimes they're most concerned about commodity prices. They're worried that the soybeans and the corn, it's way too low. Sometimes they're worried, of course, about inputs. They're worried about fertilizer. They're worried about the cost of fuel. So what we just try to do is work with our allies in Congress, and frankly, we'll work with anybody in Congress who has good ideas about how to help our farmers. We're going to have some good legislation on this front over the next year. It's just a question of getting it over the hill, getting it to the president's signature, or to the president's desk, I should say, for his signature. Thank you. One more question.
Thank you, Vice President. Derek Schritz, Newswatch 12 in Rhinelander. Wanted to ask about the healthcare worker shortages in several hospitals. Hospitals in Wisconsin are experiencing or are worried about the aging shift, aging demographic shift, and I'm wondering what the administration will do to bolster the healthcare workforce in the coming years.
Yeah, a couple things that we see is one, you know, we're encouraging hospitals and all healthcare providers, and we're seeing some evidence of this, to use technology to your advantage, right? So if you've got, let's say, a guy who needs to see a doctor,
but he can see that doctor from the comfort of his own home, doing a telehealth appointment. Sometimes you got to go into the doctor. Sometimes you can actually do that by just talking to the doctor at home. That we're trying to encourage because that puts less stress on some of the healthcare workers. If you can just see somebody quickly, it's in and out. You don't have to deal with all the paperwork of coming in for a doctor's visit. That's one of the ways that you relieve that stress and shortage that we see in our healthcare workforce. The other thing is that we're investing a lot to try to make sure that we meet the doctor, the nurse, the physician assistant shortage. The basic problem that we had in our country is that for a long time, we would encourage people to get like women's studies degrees in the United States of America, which, maybe you need a few of those. I'm not sure how much, but what you really need is doctors. You need nurses. You need people who can work with their hands. You need people who can work on a farm. You need people who build and make things and take care of people. And our education system just really underinvested in training the next generation of healthcare workers. That's not a problem that's going to be solved overnight, but it is something we're working to solve because we want, I see kids in the audience. I'm sure everybody has a young person who wants to be a healthcare worker, knows somebody in your family or your friendship circle that wants to work in healthcare. We got to make it easier for our young people to choose those careers. Unfortunately, for a very long time, we've actually made it harder for people to go into the healthcare field. We layer up those who do with debt, and we make it harder for them to join the workforce. We're trying to make it easier for people to enter the healthcare field, and in doing that, that's how you release the long-term shortage. So, that's all I have. I appreciate everybody who asked a question. I'm sorry if you didn't get time to ask a question, but let me just leave you with this one final thought. So I've got 3 little kids at home, and I've got one on the way. I've got an 8-year-old, I've got a 6-year-old, I've got a 4-year-old, and Usha is pregnant with baby number 4, which we're very happy about, very proud of. Thank you. But my 8-year-old, he's gotten really into football in the last probably 3 or 4 months. Don't hold it against him. He's an Ohio State fan. That's his dad rubbing off on him. Are we Wisconsin fans here in central Wisconsin? Okay. But here's the thing. We watched over the past few days. We watched Rudy. Does everybody remember the movie Rudy? About this guy, he was too little, he wasn't fast enough, he was 5'6", but he worked his tail end off and he made the Notre Dame football team at really the height of Notre Dame's power. I mean, they were one of the best, they still are, but they really were one of the best football programs back in the country. And it really is just this incredible tale of a guy who believed in his dreams, who fought for those dreams and would never give up. A classic American tale. But I was watching that movie and I realized the 3 most important people in that movie, obviously one is Rudy, the guy who became the football player. But number 2 is Rudy's dad, and number 3 is the priest. There's a priest in the movie who sort of serves as a spiritual counselor to Rudy. And it kind of hit me watching this movie that the American dream takes many shapes and sizes. I think all of us know that. Even among our own kids, our grandkids, our friends and family, you've got the striver. You've got the guy like Rudy who's got really big dreams, wants to play football for Notre Dame and is going to make those big dreams happen. But you've also got a guy like Rudy's dad, a guy who just wanted to work a good job, who wanted dignified work, who wanted to raise his family and take a nice vacation every now and then. And then you had this priest who was kind of the glue that held everything together, that helped people when they were struggling, that provided counsel to people when they were down on their luck, and was empowered to be a leader in the community. And I realized watching this that when we talk about the American dream, I'm not talking about my American dream. I'm talking about your American dream. Whether you want to have a good job and raise a healthy, happy family, whether your kid wants to go off and play college football, whether you want to start a business like the one that we're standing in, whatever it is, the great thing about this country is that the American dream comes in many shapes and sizes. But here's the thing about the American dream. The government cannot give it to you for you. But the government, with bad policy and bad leadership, it can destroy that American dream, whatever shape it takes in the lives of you and your children. And so I just want you to know that I'll never forget where I came from. Raised in a poor family, raised by a grandmother who would sometimes struggle to pay her prescription drugs or put food on the table and had to pick one or the other. And here I am before you, the greatest crowd in the world as the vice president of the greatest country in the world. This country is still a place of very big dreams. But I'm not going to pretend that my dream is your dream, and I just want you to know that every single day I go to work, and every single day Donald J. Trump goes to work, and we fight for the American dream for you and your family, however you define it. We would really appreciate you not sending us a bunch of crazy Democrats in November, so please don't do that. God bless you all, and thank you.
All right, the Vice President speaking there in Wisconsin. Thank you so much for joining us for this live stream coverage here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. And if you haven't seen the movie Rudy, maybe next time it's a rainy day, check it out. Great movie. It actually reminds me of a David versus Goliath in a way. You know, everybody thought David couldn't do it, but with God, all things are possible. So it's kind of like David versus Goliath, true conservative media and podcasters, citizen journalists, great patriots versus all of the rest, the mainstream media and the people that like to censor and lie and spin and do all the false narratives. Well, we know that David defeats Goliath. Figuratively speaking, that's what we can do in conservative media as well. Game on, I guess. 1:51, Thursday, February 26th. We're also tracking the latest in the Hillary Clinton deposition happening now in New York. The House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform will release the video footage from today's deposition in the near future. They also released the Ghislaine Maxwell deposition and the Les Wexner one. And of course, tomorrow with Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, for that deposition, the GOP House Committee of Government Reform and Oversight, they will be releasing these videos. So we'll be watching that and monitoring that as well. All of this brought to you by some great sponsors, including All Family Pharmacy, right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. A quick question for you. When was the last time you actually restocked your medicine cabinet? Because most people wait until someone gets sick, and then everybody starts scrambling, calling the doctor, waiting on appointments, hoping the pharmacy will actually just have what they need. But when you go to allfamilypharmacy.com, you can simply stock up in advance on essentials like antibiotics, antivirals, ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, Tamiflu, and more. More than 300 prescription medications are available, everything reviewed and prescribed safely by their licensed doctors and shipped straight to your door. So be prepared before you need it. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, and you can get that RSBN 10 promo code for that 10% off. Always good to save some money and good to have great products that are right there in the medicine cabinet in case you get sick. Also, I am with RSBN. A shout out to the following financial donors: Mariah and I Love Jesus for your donations to RSBN. Also, catch our live coverage of President Trump's speech in Corpus Christi, Texas tomorrow, right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. If you missed any of our live coverage today, we started at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and we covered a lot about the Epstein files, had a lot of live interviews, and the latest statement from the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, in regards to her remarks to that House committee. So we'll be tracking that story and many others right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank God for true conservative media that's out there. Again, shout out to citizen journalists, podcasters, those of us out there that are just like, hey, let's keep our country free. How about it? For all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Matthew Alvarez. We'll see you again soon.